It's scrumptious.
Adam Curry, John C. Dvorak.
It's Sunday, May 20th, 2018. This is your award-winning Gitmo Nation Media Assassination, episode 1035.
This is No Agenda.
Breaking down Evil Corp and broadcasting live from the capital of the Drone Star State here in downtown Austin, Tejas, in the Cludio. In the morning, everybody. I'm Adam Curry.
And from northern Silicon Valley, where we're doing the show ATZ. I'm John C. Dvorak.
It's Crackpot and Buzzkill in the morning.
I'm sorry, did you say ATZ?
Yeah.
ATZ. At the zone?
After the Zephyr.
I can't believe we missed the Zephyr. We must be starting late.
It was on time, the Zephyr. We weren't.
Yeah. Well, you can always count on some things.
No, you can't.
True. Well, let's just start off with the most important news.
Woohoo!
Did you see the royal wedding?
The British royal wedding.
That must be the most important news of the day.
Well, it definitely clogged up the news channels, and I did get a bunch of clips. And I want to show you the
did?
Kind of
I have two observations and no clips.
I got tons of clips, but let me give you an idea what my clips are like, so you'll understand where I'm headed.
Okay.
How about let's doing the BRW, which is British Royal Wedding, unintended consequences.
In this time of Brexit, the royal wedding is a windfall for an economy that appears to be stagnating at present. And it isn't just Windsor here that's benefiting. According to one bridal website, during the wedding, there'll be 8,000 street parties up and down the country, at which 1.5 million cucumber sandwiches will be devoured. So it's safe to say that this is a moment of unrestrained joy in the British cucumber industry.
The British what?
Cucumber
industry.
Yeah, it's a windfall.
Wait, I got to give you just two of my observations. One, there was normally when you have these processions and I lived in London, people are applauding. There was a lot less applause, and I realized why. These idiots were all holding up their cell phones, filming the procession.
Oh, wow. That is an outstanding observation.
It was just like, what? This is not normal. I mean,
well, it's
normal. It's today's, it is today's normal. But holy moly, it's just like that. That is not what I am used to. So it was very.
Yeah, you're right. They're always clapping. They're clap, but you can't clap and hold your cell phone up.
Unless you got one of those.
Imagine who needs spy agencies anymore? All you have to do is get a hold of all these videos. There's no way that Kennedy would have been assassinated.
I was just about to say, Zapruder video is just so outdated.
Yeah.
But to me, that was like, wow, this, I've seen it when I went to the Tony Bennett concert with Tina when he was playing here in town. It was the same thing. I'm like, geez, man, and they were filming the whole show. Now, in that case, there's probably no live television registration of the event, and I'm sure he doesn't give a crap anymore who does what. But for this, I mean, one of the most covered events of the world. And can I just say, what is up with all of the CNN, well, certainly CNN, but all of the news douchebags? They were all dressed up like they were ready for Royal Ascot. They had all of their groovy British outfits on, and some of them, the dresses. Oh, I want to have a great dress, I will, for this. I wonder if the IRS lets them deduct that from their taxes.
Could come out of wardrobe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. They didn't have to pay for it themselves. All right. So that was my main observation. Is and what are these people going to do? They're going to show it. They're going to put it on the face bag or on Twitter, or on Instagram, or whatever. I'm here. It's so great. And then that's it. It's done. And then you spend all your time looking at the little screen instead of the real thing.
This is always baffling to me. The looking at the little screen instead of you're right there. What are you taking? You don't what?
Yeah, rah. Okay.
What am I talking about? What
please. Continue with your clips. I'm glad you have some.
I have a bunch of clips, but it was an economic thing I thought was interesting, and this was kind of where I went with the cucumber thing, of course.
Yeah, interesting.
But let's play the BRW Economics 1 and hear about it.
not to mention in boardrooms around the country, because the numbers have surprised the experts. David Haig runs a consultancy that specialises in estimating the worth of a brand and evaluating intangible assets.
The reality is that since it was announced, there has been an absolute frenzy. When we first looked at the impact of the wedding on the UK economy, we estimated that it would have about $700 million worth of beneficial effect. We have now doubled that. We think it's about $1.4 billion.
Haig says that a considerable portion of those earnings will come from tourism. About 50 million people visit the UK each year, and Haig estimates that the wedding will draw in an additional 350,000 tourists, each spending on average between $1,000 and $2,000. This is music to the ears of Patricia Yates, who heads Visit Britain, the authority responsible for marketing the country as it enters Brexit territory.
We need to make sure that people come now. History and Heritage will be here in 10 years' time. So I think the attraction of an event like this, it's about romance, and it brings that royal story to a newer and younger audience. Who are the people that are travelling worldwide?
So far this year, as Britain's divorce from Europe approaches, retail spending and consumer confidence have been jittery, according to shopping expert Diane Whirl, who expects a wedding-related flip.
Retail is a very emotive sector. It relies on our emotions and our wants and our feel-good factors. And what the royal wedding does is create feel-good. And so it adds buoyancy to a market. It adds good feeling.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest, not for a second did I think about any of this, about the economic effects. But that, of course, is why you do this kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. And that's the rationale for the British royalty. In fact, I think in clip 2 here, they may mention the amount of money you have to maintain the royalties, $50 million a year. And they believe it brings in much more in, these gawkers. And so because there are still people that are anti-monarchist and would just as soon get rid of the monarchy.
But I know people who are anti-monarchy and they love this shit. And they're British. They can't get enough of it. It's the weirdest thing.
Monarchy can you be?
I know. It's the weirdest thing. Truly. It's like the baby. What's the baby going to be named? All this is really important to them. And I give them grace for that. They can do whatever they want.
Let's play the part 2 of the same.
The fascination with the British upper crust is understood by Sophia Money Coutts, daughter of an aristocratic family, famous in the UK for being the royal bankers.
There's a huge amount of love for Harry, and I think for the past few years there's been a lot of pressure on Harry. When's he going to settle down? Oh, he's the last of his friends to get married. When's it going to be his turn? And I think that's why there is such excitement that he's suddenly very clearly in love, completely head over heels with Meghan. And so people are just thrilled for them. They're just really, really pleased and excited about the big day.
The festivities in Windsor outrage British Republicans, who argue that the monarchy is a corrupt institution. The royal family costs the taxpayer about $50 million a year. Their defenders claim the additional earnings they generate is a compelling economic argument for sticking with the crown. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Malcolm Brabant in Windsor.
Okay, compelling. Yeah, I'm all in. That's good.
I love Brabant.
Yeah, compelling. Mm-hmm.
I picked up a couple of, I got some other stuff. There's one that kind of applies to you since you lived in England long enough to make a commentary on this, and you mentioned these friends of yours. Let's play this one. This is from a special that was done on, this is very funny. PBS ran 2 hours with Meredith Vieira and some British guy, and three of the most kind of upper, these followers of the monarchy and biographers and these people that were experts upon expertise. And it was 2 hours a night the whole week before the wedding on PBS, which I thought was very fawning. But there was a lot of good information in there, and I have a couple of clips I thought was very educational. But before I play that, I want to play this clip, which is one of these guys predicts that Meghan in 30 years will be the first American female president, casually. But he also talks about a couple of other elements about what her life's going to be like.
Who married my son, and she's an American actress.
Oh,
the real challenge for Meghan is actually living with British people, the small different things, and I think that's going to be one of the great tests
royal
for her.
family. It's not just British people. It's
I
British
wonder.
royal family.
It's probably quite controversial. I wonder if they'll end up going and living in the States at some point.
Well,
Could they?
not only that, they could, and she I think will retain her American citizenship.
Yeah.
I could see 30 years from now her being the first female president of the United States.
Well, you were right about Prince Charles walking her down there, so I'm not going to...
Okay, hold on a second. Couple things in there. So her dad did not come to walk her down the aisle. And that is because of health reasons was the official explanation. So Charles did it. Now, though, I got to step back for a second because we have here a divorcee. She is
possibly, according to the National Enquirer, twice divorced.
Possibly a double divorcee. She's half black, so she's not pure. How can this be that the British royal family is allowing this? Is it because they are modernizing? No. We must go back and understand that Charles, of course, is not really Harry's real dad. That would be James Hewitt. Now, wasn't he the stable boy or something? And if you look at the two side by side, it's very obvious. And I'm sure that Harry's happy with that. He's happy his real dad is alive. Who's this guy? This corpse walking down the aisle with his future bride. But the thing is, because of that and the royal family knowing it, this is not going to corrupt any bloodline. There's no royal bloodline in this union. He was from Diana and the stable boy, or whatever James Hewitt was. I forget. Maybe he was a guard or something. I can't remember. Doesn't matter. Meghan is obviously not from royal blood, so it's great. It's just a big promotion. Everybody looks good. It doesn't water down the bloodline. Kind of everybody wins.
I think they need that bloodline to be boosted by a multiracial person.
Yeah, but he's never going to be
I know.
king.
He's not.
Yeah. So it's easy for him. It's easy. Fine, let's do this. Let's have a party. It's good for business.
Well, the thing that was in this last clip I wanted to mention, which was they said her problem is going to be living with British people.
Yeah.
Now, a friend of mine
to which the one commentator said, "Oh, she's living with royals. It's very different. It's not the same as British people."
Yeah, well, there's that, which is probably true.
No.
But we had a guy that was from PC Magazine, and he was sent to England to edit PC Mag UK. I don't remember the circumstance, but he was moved there for some reason. And it was about a year into it before he started grousing about the British, to the point where he just had to get out of there. And I met with him a couple of times in England, and he was, he was just beside himself about the horrible English people, and he just thought they were.
I like the British. I like their culture. I like their humor. The two things that were difficult for me is I found that pretty much impossible to do business with them. They lie. I'm sorry, Brits, but in business they lie all the time. Which is kind of an odd, almost like an Asian culture in a way. Save face, but they're not really saving face, they just lie. And that's my experience. I'm not trying to generalize, but I'm going to do it from my experience. And extremely racist. Extremely racist. But I love them.
Well, the racism thing, yes, is noticeable. The lying thing may account for some of the weird lying that takes place in former British influenced colonies in the Indies, for example.
Oh, that's where it comes from?
I don't know. Now that you mention it, I had never even thought that the British in business just lied. Apparently they do.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Or
that does explain a number of things to me in areas that were influenced by the British.
Now it's also maybe it's because I'm not in the club. Maybe it's let's screw the Yank. We'll do whatever we want. That's also possible.
Yeah, but that doesn't negate lying. Lying is lying.
Yeah, but lying,
whatever. If there's a rationale for it, that's you have a rationale for it, but it's still the same.
But now let's go back to your original thesis, which I did try to carefully propagate a little bit to much resistance. Because I should just be happy for them, is a possible marriage, a union between CIA and MI6.
Yes, with Clooney showing up for good measure.
I should have been ready for that one. Right? Yeah. Because when I said that, like, well, actually, what happened is later it was like, well, she's really smart. So yeah, look at the school she's gone to.
George Clooney is a spy.
There he is. There's George. Of course, he shows up. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's there.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to represent the folk.
Yeah. You got you have one more clip, or what is that?
I have actually 3 more clips, but these are the ones that are specific. The other ones are more general clips that I thought would just be of all kinds of great interest. And in fact, I'll play. Let's jump to one of those. And this is the kind of clip, like the cucumber clip, that I just thought was, because I never thought about this before until now they had on this PBS thing, they had lots of packages. And this one package was discussing what the dinner's going to be like, the bowl food, and all this other stuff that they made a big stink about. And but they had something here, because in this little clip, this is defining a feast, the kind of feast, as it was called, that Henry VIII would put on. And could you describe what this was like without? I mean, I've never thought about it, but I just thought it was just a big lot of food. But it's actually more interesting than that. If you want to play it, or you want to guess.
If I want to guess what it was like, their feast?
Yeah, what's a feast like?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking Caligula.
Yeah, same thing.
Caligula.
Same thing. I have no
Roman
clue.
orgy. I don't know. What could it be?
Let's play it.
Who's in and who's out. It's the iron hand in the velvet glove.
What sort of occasion would Henry VIII throw a feast for?
There were the Easter feasts, his marriages, he had enough of them, and then celebrations for the betrothal of a prince or princess to a foreign power.
What things might we be surprised to see on the table at a Tudor feast?
Well, heron, seagull, porpoise, and swan, sprinkled with gold leaf and embellished to within an inch of their lives. It would come up from the kitchens, and there would be fanfare.
At a Tudor feast, no one had to worry about which knife to use.
Carvers would carve you a chunk, and then you would use a knife to cut off your little bits.
You'd bring this with you?
Yes, and it was a fashion accessory. And the further up the scale you went, the more glorious your knife. The other implements with the shape of your hands, yes, and you just went for it. And the table would be completely covered, and you made your selection.
Bit of that,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
From a complete carpet of food.
You hacked that thing up. What happened to that clip? Is that how
was the way it was played? I
really
didn't hack it up.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that was their version of editing.
Oh,
PBS.
PBS. Weekend Crew. Yeah.
So we can play it. Go from that to Tudor etiquette.
Okay, and then we got to move on because I'm tired of it.
Yeah, well, come on.
Tudor etiquette. And I want to hear the Tudor etiquette. Oh, that's different.
Yeah. What was good Tudor etiquette?
Well, Erasmus wrote a book of etiquette, and he said, do not gnaw on bones like a dog. Do not begin the meal by drinking. It is the mark of a drunkard. Do not belch. If you must break wind, cover it with the sound of a cough, as in... Use the tablecloth, because we sit down and we push the tablecloth away, but they would sit down and then go like this.
Cover themselves up with it.
And do this, yeah.
That's quite interesting, because you can see sort of the ending of the medieval period and this new Renaissance, more courteous age beginning, can't you, in that advice?
You can.
Now, apparently they used the tablecloth as the lap napkin.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I don't know anything
you're making
about
sound
this.
effects. I thought that was interesting. All right, we can move on.
Well, the thing that was, two things were interesting about this. One, I remain that in this day of toxic masculinity and, women need to really move ahead in society. Why are we glorifying this ancient tradition of a man taking a woman and she's a commoner and all these degrading terms for women. And is that the dream for little girls to become a princess one day?
Hello?
Yeah, I'm just saying. I just want to point out what to me was ginormous hypocrisy.
I don't know. How's it hypocrisy?
I'm sorry?
Well, it's not hypocrisy. I don't think that's the right word.
Oh?
Well, yeah. Because the same people that are because you're not showing that the people that are
what's the right? We're just telling
and groaning about toxic masculinity are into what we're talking about.
The same women who are yammering about toxic masculinity were into this. I think most women in America. I'm only generalizing for sure, but still. And then the other thing that bothers me tremendously is that the news media. I mean, everything was set up. They had their main. I said they sent all the gay guys to England, including Shep Smith for Fox.
Let a number of gay guys stay in the States. I heard more than one or two gay guys commenting on this.
I'm talking about our favorite gay guys. Come on.
Oh, our favorite gay guys.
They were all.
They demanded to go.
Yes, of course they were there. Yeah, the packages were ready. Everything was set. So we have this horrific event right up the road from me in Texas. It was like, okay, we'll cover this and scene. Okay, everybody, let's go back. We're back to the royal wedding. And that was it. So then just...
I have to give credit to PBS NewsHour on this because every network news station, except maybe one, and they put it off maybe one spot, they led with the wedding. They all led with the wedding.
With the wedding, yeah.
PBS NewsHour ended the show with the wedding after an hour.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the way to do it. I mean, this is not an American
exactly.
event.
That's your outro.
It's kind of cute that there's an American multiracial girl in the thing, but who knows nobody knew who she was until she started dating this guy.
Yeah.
And I still now if I was like the news director, I'd go find her ex-husband and maybe her ex-husband if she had two, or maybe some old boyfriends, and find out what she's got going on in the bed.
That sounds like PBS material to me.
Well, it wouldn't be on PBS, obviously, but I think it could be on Inside Edition or some more lascivious.
What kind of deets are you looking for?
I'm looking for all of it. I want to know what does she do that's got this guy like Gaga? I mean, she must have some skills.
God, John, you clearly watch with a whole different frame of mind. Yeah. I like the dress. Dress was okay. I liked her party dress more.
I didn't see the party dress.
And she had great shoes. Great shoes.
They made a big deal about this cake. I never saw the cake. There was a good...
Dude, we're getting sucked back in. Stop. We're doing the same thing. Stop.
Let me do one. I'll do the one last thing. Did you know that traditionally, although this time it wasn't true, almost all the royals' wedding cakes are made out of fruit cake?
Yes, I did hear that. And Tina and I looked at each other and went, ugh.
And nobody ever ate it. They saved them, and apparently an old.
Is that how it started?
I think so. And so apparently a 1947 slice of Queen Elizabeth's cake
is still around.
It's going on the auction block and sold for $2,000.
It can go on tour with Kathy Griffin's Trump head. It's a twofer. It's a British American tour. Yeah, so we should look into the background again. And for those who don't know, in the United States of Gitmo Nation, and my Aunt Janny used to do this every year. She'd send a fruitcake to everybody. And it was hard as a rock, and it's
inedible. And if you tried to eat it, it was tasteless. So it was tasteless. It was loaded with spices, but it was grainy and ugh.
As a kid, you look at that thing, and go, no way in hell I'm touching it. And so then, of course, we have our joke here that there's basically one fruitcake that goes all around America around Christmas time. Everybody sends it to each other. No one wants to touch the damn thing. But maybe that originated with these weddings somehow. This saving of the cake.
Yeah.
So we had this shooting, and I've been looking at the feeds and everything throughout.
You want to play? I have the long form, not the whole thing because it went on 10 minutes, but I have the ABC report that I thought was pretty good overview.
Oh, yeah, that would be fantastic. Let's see. Yeah, got it. Let's listen to that first.
Time it was Santa Fe High School in Texas, a student opening fire.
By the way, Santa Fe, I've received a notice from several producers, not a loving, close-knit community. In fact, one of our producers sent a note and said, yeah, black people, it's a no-go zone for black people in that neighborhood. So I don't know if he's implying they're racist but he says it's very, everything's tense there. Everybody's messed up. That's what the producers are saying.
Time it was Santa Fe High School in Texas, a student opening fire during class this morning. Classmates running, first responders racing to the school. At least 10 dead, the victims, students, and a teacher. Those who did get out hugging one another in fear and in grief. Anxious parents waiting, praying that they would see their children again. Tonight, a suspect is in custody, now charged with murder. And ABC's chief national affairs correspondent Tom Yamas on the scene with how the horror unfolded.
Early in the morning, just as school was getting underway, the rampage started. Students sprinting to safety.
Everybody needs to clear out this way.
Teachers hustling them from the scene. It began around 7:40 a.m. Senior Tyler Turner says his friend spotted a student with a gun.
He saw the kid walking down the hall, and he looked suspicious and whatnot, like he said he had a gun or something. So he went down the hall, like walking, casually, didn't want him to know. And then he pulled the fire alarm, so we all went outside. And then we heard 3 shots.
That fire alarm driving students from their classrooms.
As soon as the alarms went off, everybody just started running outside. And next thing you know, everybody looks, and you hear boom, boom, boom. And I just ran as fast as I could to the nearest forest so I could hide. And I called my mom.
Police racing to Santa Fe High School.
He's actually shooting. He's in the art room. We got shots fired right now, guys.
Student Peter Matuza tells our Marcus Moore he was right there when the shooter unloaded.
He first opened fire with a shotgun in which he shot one of my other friends in the head, and her body fell down not too far away from where I was under the table. That is when he turned like this and opened fire with the revolver.
Kids line up on the field, emptying their backpacks for officers to inspect. Their hands on their heads. They're patted down one by one. With students shaken outside, others hiding in classrooms. Their parents getting that dreaded phone call.
She called. She said, "Mom, there's shots." I immediately turned around. I said, I'm coming. I stayed on the phone with her the whole time and just kept talking to her, kept telling her to stay calm, stay quiet. And tell me about what happened until the police finally let her out.
By 9 a.m., the shooter had surrendered, but the danger wasn't over. The suspect wanting to take his carnage to a new level of evil.
There have been explosive devices found in the high school and surrounding areas adjacent to the high school.
Tonight, 10 people are dead, most of them students, others wounded in the hospital. And now the suspect has a mugshot, 17-year-old Dimitrios Pagorchis, a junior at Santa Fe High School. On his Facebook page, he's in a baseball cap with a peace sign. But about 3 weeks ago, he posted this photo of a shirt with the words "Born to Kill." Authorities say he kept extensive journals.
Not only did he want to commit the shooting, but he wanted to commit suicide after the shooting. As you probably know, he gave himself up and admitted at the time that he didn't have the courage to commit the suicide.
Police say he used 2 guns, a shotgun and a .38 revolver.
Yeah, and so as the Soch Meds came into action, there was an obvious issue because, damn it, the guy didn't use an AR-15. So we he stole, not that no law would have stopped this as far as, well, maybe the outright banning of all guns, everyone hand them in. He stole a shotgun and a .38 from his dad. Shotgun, by the way, if you remember what good old Joe Biden said.
Kate, if you want to protect yourself, get a double-barrel shotgun, have the shells, a 12-gauge shotgun, and I promise you, as I told my wife, we live in an area that...
You remember the story. That's what Joe said.
Yeah.
You don't need an AR-15, get a shotgun. Well, gee, shotguns kill too.
To be so accurate.
Yeah, that's a little bit easy. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for the tip. We try to give everyone life-saving tips. Joe's giving tips to kill people. But so that then turned into another donation drive. I have tons of chip-in emails because those evil Republicans and the crazy Trump, he won't fix this. We got to fix it. Yeah, but no one has anything to say now about how to fix it because you can't point to a certain gun.
It went off script.
It totally went off script. It was just now. A couple other things that I've noticed. Well, first let's start with the obvious. Q predicted it, John. Just so you know, Q predicted it. Yep. Q predicted something going down tomorrow. That's what he always does. Something going down tomorrow.
He says that every day, doesn't he?
Something going down tomorrow. And then this happens. And with the obvious results.
Their advice to anybody who chooses to seek it about some of the unexpected things that they may find in the aftermath of having experienced such grief, including all kinds of carnival shysters and people who are snake oil salesmen, and including people who are trying to gain access to some of their financial records, things of that sort. Listen to what they had to tell me just a little while ago.
The first thing we found out is that there's a group of conspiracy theorists out there that are trying to promote the idea that the U.S. government is behind all these mass shootings and that we're crisis actors and that our daughter is still living somewhere in the Bahamas.
Did they approach you?
Oh, yes.
They were also approached by people who were offering to use their daughter's name for charity purposes, but they were charities that the parents did not approve of. They were used anyway.
Oh, yeah. So that could fit into any theory you want.
There you go with your chip in.
Yeah, you could do anything you want with that, but I see no need for it. What was also interesting and different about this was devices. He had devices. That, and I know that you have identified this trend of calling bombs devices, and I now know where it comes from. Of course, as we've militarized everything in America, it's the military term for IED, improvised explosive device. So that's, I think, where they're getting devices from.
That's possible.
But in this case,
As the shooting unfolded, they've been unable to gain access because this is a live police investigation scene right now, and they're still on the lookout for some of these pipe bombs, even though one of them turned out not to be very dangerous. It was a CO2 canister wrapped with gaffer's tape and no detonator on it, so I don't know what that portends for other devices which may have been found here.
Bombs, pipe bombs. They just called it by name.
Yeah, but they called it pipe bombs. That's true. There's no other term for pipe bomb yet. But there was no evidence there was ever a pipe bomb. They found a CO2 can.
Yeah.
And, just a gas explosion. I mean, it's not even explosive. It's just CO2. And some other. I think this was exaggerated.
Possibly. And we really don't know anything. The only thing I care about is I just can't find reporting on it. Is what was his mental state? Was he medicated? These are the only two things I want to know.
You're never going to find out if he's medicated because they don't report on that ever. Because the news media is supported by these same drug companies.
Yes, and in fact, that's the only thing I participated in the SocMeds. I tweeted out. I said. Actually, the statistic comes from in 2015, 23% of 18 to 24-year-olds, really college-age kids, and so he was almost that age.
17.
Yeah, he was almost college age.
Yeah, he's 17, which is close enough.
23% in 2015, which was a doubling at the time, were on some form of antidepressant. And now take into account that in 2014, the pharmaceutical industry spent $6 billion in America alone on marketing. That's not their lobbying dollars. Their total spend is probably closer to 20 or 25 billion to sell their goods. And I do have a nice little big pharma package coming up later on. Because they use that $6 billion in the media, we're never going to get reporting on it. Because in America, the advertiser is God. So if you worship a different God, that's okay. Most people in America worship the advertiser as God. The God tells them what to do. The God determines what they're going to see. That's just how it is. Did you have anything else to add to this shooting? Because I don't think we have anything.
No, I don't know if I have any clips. I do have something else that's kind of parallel.
Well, I wanted to go into a different topic, so don't split off if that's what you're doing.
No, it's parallel. I'm not splitting off. This is not a fork.
Okay.
By the way, in watching all the British world running, I realized that the United States is a fork of the British Empire.
We forked their blockchain.
We forked it, man.
Yeah, babe. Well, actually,
this is a Generation Z speeches. I thought this was this. They're going to try to push this little guy. I don't know who's behind it. Supposedly some kid. I doubt it. But this is just an off-the-wall report that came in locally because they're trying to promote this. It's a dreadful idea.
This latest shooting in Texas is bringing more attention to a growing student-led campaign called Donate 60. It's a 60-second speech crafted by a team of high school students from around the country, highlighting equality, safety from gun violence, and action on climate change. A junior at Bellarmine College Prep in San Jose was part of that team who wrote that speech. He says the goal of the campaign is to get valedictorians and other high school graduation speakers to spend 60 seconds reading this special statement. The idea is to empower Generation Z, who in the next 4 years will own 17 million votes.
We want politicians in office to see this and recognize that if they don't push for change in these areas that clearly necessitate change, that they will not necessarily be in office much longer.
McReynolds says the speech is not intended to divide along party lines, but to unite, and he hopes it's just the start of a much larger movement led by Generation Z.
Now, wait a minute. This was the Hog Kids' whole vibe was, hey, we're getting ready to vote, and we're going to vote you out. This is a new kid?
Yeah, this is a kid local, Bellarmine High. He is, and this is about a speech that he wants. They're trying to promote the idea of the 60-second, whatever they call it. You're one of the high school graduates, and you're the valedictorian, so you give a little speech at the end of to the class. Some of them are funny, some of them aren't, and some of them are humorous, and some of them are serious, and they just want everyone in this group, everyone that's out there now graduating, they want every valedictorian to read the 60-second speech as part of their speech, which I wouldn't do in a million years if I was the valedictorian speaker.
Well, the virtue signaling is so powerful. Last night, Tina took me to the Austin Under 40 gala because one of her colleagues was nominated. And this is a big deal. It's black tie, the 700-800 people. It's in the JW Marriott, and this food actually kind of decent. Got a 12-piece band, and so they award these in different categories. It's like the who's the coolest under 40. What do you think? The standing ovation for one person only of the 15 winners. What do you think? Who do you think got the standing ovation?
Well, I don't know anybody in the area, so I wouldn't have a clue who.
It would be the woman who got up and thanked everybody and said, "I'm undocumented," and then went into a whole. Went into a whole thing, and it got uncomfortable because once she had done that, then everybody was like, Austin is filled with diversity. I'm like, yeah, let's walk outside and give some of this rubber chicken to the homeless guy across the street. I mean, yeah, it's diverse, I guess. We have rich people inside, homeless guy right outside. But okay, that's diversity. It was real virtue signaling, and it was uncomfortable at times for me. I was like, wow, You
feel like you're in a meeting of the Bund.
The Bund. In Illinois, they had a whole different response to this school shooting in Texas.
To how it was responded, how quickly it was
I think it's a senator from Illinois.
Responded. Obviously, there was an armed guard on the premise.
Well, the presence of the armed officer. Now, the officer was critically injured. He was shot. I don't know if he was able to return fire or not. I haven't heard that. I think the fact that he was able to engage probably saved the lives of many of those students. And I also understand that there was a Texas trooper that also engaged the suspect. I don't know if you're aware of this, but there is a movement in the state of Illinois where we also had a school shooter taken down the other day before he was able to cause any deaths by a school resource officer. There's actually a movement to defund school resource officers and replace them with mental health professionals. And this is just madness. What happened yesterday and what happened last week in Illinois is a shining example of why it is so necessary to have armed police officers in the schools.
I like that. Take out the guns, bring in the shrink. It's a step in the right direction. Because
the shrink will get shot.
No, the step in the right direction is we need to be all over this mental health issue and not putting Band-Aids on stuff. But I'm a broken record at that point. Now, here's what was the timing is always interesting. And I'm not saying that this was timed event, but this news did completely obfuscate a very interesting, two things. Gina Haspel was confirmed as CIA chief. And right on the heels of her being confirmed, we have this bombshell report in the New York Times. And from what I understand, well, I'm sure a lot of journalists from the New York Times have CIA connections, but this was possibly a CIA-connected, sources from CIA reporter who publishes this Trump had a spy in his campaign story.
Yeah.
Now, to me, with Gina Haspel being...
I'm just going to say it's elaborated on a little more interestingly in The Intercept.
Oh, what did The Intercept say? And I have a theory which I want to run through, but I definitely want your input.
I can't summarize what they said. I just say there's a lot of elaboration.
Okay. So for me, you have Gina Haspel being confirmed, which didn't get a lot of news, but she was confirmed. But then she's in, and to me, it was like, oh, okay. And then all of a sudden, here's this big piece of news. So when we had the royal wedding, which that obviously that was a pre-planned event. But then the shooting really covered up, it kind of, what it really did is it stopped the Russian news cycle completely. I mean, it came to a grinding halt for 48 hours. There was nothing about the Russian news cycle. Yeah, they had
to because the royal wedding, everyone knew was going to chew up at least half the news cycle. So you just need a filler.
Yeah.
To clog up the whole thing.
So it was a nice distraction. And maybe if you are John Brennan or somebody else who might be involved in some collusion, maybe you're kind of happy that, let's see if we can figure something else out. I don't think John Brennan's been tweeting a lot about Russia recently. And I want to run a theory by you that kind of just came to me, and it's full of holes. Give me a little room to present it, but definitely interrupt when you think that's appropriate. So what we learned from this CIA-connected journalist is we have a spy, and we pretty much all know, everyone, the big secret, I guess, or an open secret in D.C., that the spy is this helper guy who is he's really a long-term CIA asset. That may have also been in The Intercept, but this is all, and it's not crazy. I mean, there's tons of people who are assets for CIA, and a lot of them are very well known. But something... What?
Yeah, we just talked about one earlier.
Exactly. We can't seem to stop talking about her. But we learned something important, something new. Crossfire Hurricane was the name of this spy's mission. Crossfire Hurricane, obviously from the Rolling Stones. The Jumpin' Jack Flash. We'll just play a little bit so we recall. It's the opening line of the song. I was born in a crossfire hurricane. Okay, Crossfire Hurricane. What a Crossfire Hurricane really is a type of storm that will get up right until its kind of its middle point and will flip 180 degrees and go in the other direction. And this was the code name which I believe Strzok and then his girlfriend Paige were talking about when they were texting back and forth. This was the insurance policy. This was the Crossfire Hurricane. No matter what happens, we'll be able to reverse this election or reverse whatever. I'm sure they wanted to happen before the actual election. And so this is the operation that they were talking about. Now we have to recall that we have modified our initial CIA FBI competitive rift, or expanded it really, to two groups within the United States government: the intelligence community, mainly run by CIA, and the defense intelligence community run by the Pentagon, the DIA. And these two groups alternate running the president. Not always exactly one than the other, but the CIA, we've theorized previously, Obama was their guy. And Brennan was probably Obama's handler, and that would, and I can make it all fit within my own bias.
Yeah, and both Brennan and
they're
Obama
Muslim.
being Muslims,
Both
it
Muslim.
makes it easier.
Yeah. I know people are shaking their heads, but just bear with us for a moment. And there's ample evidence that they're both Muslim. It doesn't matter. Trump, we know from people like Pachenik and others, and just some obvious evidence, is run by the military. Look at who's around him. So it's DIA, CIA versus DIA. So clearly the CIA is all pissed off about the DIA having their clearly unqualified orange clown candidate in. So they are doing anything they can to break this guy down. This Halper, who was what is he? He's a college professor. He's an author. He's a gadfly. He's roaming around. Yeah. He's hanging out. He was in London. He was in London mid-July. This is at least 2 weeks, maybe longer, before the official FBI investigation started. So he came back after talking with Carter Page, and drunk Papadopoulos, and he had this story, which he, of course, told his handlers at CIA. Say, these guys say that the Russians have Hillary's emails, and that's when the investigation started. And I think that CIA said to FBI, "Hey, you should talk to this guy." So he debriefs them, and they're like, "Oh, this is great." And at this point, we also are just going to presume the facts of Seth Rich, that it wasn't the Russians who stole Hillary's emails. It was, or the DNC, I should say. The DNC hack was not really a hack. It was an inside job. This guy's dead. We don't know. Assange put a bounty on getting his killer. So we're probably sure that what happened is inside job gave it to WikiLeaks. But what the CIA cabal wanted to prove is that had gone through the Trump administration, because there was drunk Papadopoulos who knew all about it. And you recall maybe 6 months ago or 7 months ago, they got all jitty with it because they thought they had found proof that the Trump campaign had the WikiLeaks, had the emails before WikiLeaks had them. You remember that? But it was a mistake in the dates, and they all had to correct their story.
No, I don't remember that, but it makes sense.
Okay, so they all had to correct their story. It was like, oh, we finally have him. We got him. Here's the collusion. They had this, the collusion with the Russians. They've been trying to do this from the get-go. So the official investigation starts July 31st, and the embarrassing fact is that not only was this not a Russian hack of the DNC, it was an inside job, but we have to pin it on the Russians. So what do? We call in, not the FBI, who have not been allowed to see any of the infrastructure. We call in CrowdStrike. I learned a little about CrowdStrike. Do you know that they are owned by, or they were, I don't know if they're still owned 100%. I'm sure they have taken investment, but this is a Ukrainian firm. It's Ukrainian guys running CrowdStrike, the Pew Pew company. They hate the Russians. So that's easy. We'll have these guys say, oh, it was clearly the Russians. So this continues, and I think from that moment on, this has all been to cover up the ugly fact that they really could never make that connection. They were wrong. They were spying on the Trump campaign. CIA was spying. They thought they had him. They brought in the FBI. FBI went balls to the wall. And by the way, you also have the Steele guy out there. And so everyone's there. The real collusion is there. But then when I think about it, and I'll just wrap this up because I can be completely wrong. if you have Crossfire Hurricane as your as kind of your signal, like, hey, Crossfire Hurricane, this is our code word. It kind of tells me a little bit about Trump's use of a different Rolling Stones song.
I saw her today at the reception.
Just listen to the words.
A glass of wine in her hand.
A glass of wine in her hand. Who could that be?
I knew she was gonna meet her connection.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
At her feet was a footloose man.
So this is what Trump plays every single time he does a gathering, and near the end of the song we have another interesting lyric.
I saw her today at the reception.
Just listen to what he says.
In a glass was a bleeding man.
In a glass was a bleeding man.
She was practiced at the art of deception.
Practice at the art of deception.
Well, I could tell by her bloodstained hands.
I could tell by her bloodstained hands. I don't know. I don't think Trump's that deep. But if I were the DIA and I wanted to send a message back to CIA, this is how I'd do it.
It's all about Hillary.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The whole song. Got blood on her hands.
A glass of wine in her hand, the whole thing. So they would know about the counter operation, and they would counter the counter with this song just to say, hey, we know what's going on. Now, that's a pretty far out idea.
Yeah.
But these spooks are so screwy that it's very possible.
It's much bigger than we're just here down, and we are truly in the swamp trying to figure it out. Those guys are way above us, playing songs for each other. I mean, then you now. I just wanted to point out another observation about myself, how I come up with this. John, you and I grew up with media. My whole life has been television mainly, and storytelling has changed throughout human lifetime, and this generation, myself included, have grown up connecting scenes. So you watch a TV show or a movie, doesn't matter. They're inside, they're talking, boom, next they're in the car and they're driving somewhere. Now, in my mind, I have connected those two dots, with a whole truthful scenario. They got the coats, they walked out, got the keys, got in the car, started, pulled into traffic, driving around, and then we're there. Or we're in New York City afternoon, all of a sudden, boom, we're in Tokyo late at night. Now, obviously, I didn't sit there for 13 hours while the camera crew went over there to get that shot. So I've created this story in my mind. I've created the connecting dots. So if you have dots, also known as facts, what happens in between is your bias. So in this case, I'm taking my bias and I'm saying, yeah, here's what I think might have happened in between these factual pieces. And what I'm really describing is the multidimensional world we live in right now. Is people have the same facts, but we are so trained to tell the story the way we want to hear it that it seems like this is, it's like Occam's razor. Occam's razor is a double-edged sword, a double edges. It's like it can cut your way, it can cut my way, because you're just interpreting everything in the middle. So that's what I did. And of course, I like it.
Well, yeah, it's spooky. It's kind of funny. It's got it's got some songs in it. It was very difficult to make that connection, but you apparently knew the hurricane lyric, because I didn't. And then once you thought Rolling Stones, then you think, well, Rolling Stones, and then somehow you jump to the Hillary references.
Tina and I spent a good 45 minutes over the weekend trying to figure out Tiny Dancer. We don't quite know the significance of that one yet. That's a very, very odd song when you read the lyrics.
Huh. And so, these guys are just...
So they're screwed. They're screwed. They can't pin it. What they wanted to prove, they just can't prove because they screwed up. And Brennan is very quiet now that we know who the spy is. Comey is too. All these guys are very quiet.
Well, let's play the one clip I do have about the FBI informant.
Yeah. Okay.
The president and his supporters, meanwhile, are circulating an explosive theory that the FBI may have planted a spy inside Mr. Trump's 2016 campaign. Mola Lenghi is at the White House.
President Trump has seized on reports that an FBI informant was embedded in the Trump campaign. The informant, who according to the Washington Post was a retired American professor, interacted with Trump campaign members George Papadopoulos, Carter Page, and Sam Clovis. In a series of tweets Friday, President Trump wrote that the FBI implanted for political purposes a spy in the Trump campaign, adding that they are out to frame Donald Trump for crimes he didn't commit.
Let's get to conclusion first. Conclusion is no wrongdoing.
Rudy Giuliani, the president's attorney, acknowledged some uncertainty.
First of all, I don't know for sure, nor does the president, if there really was one. We're told that. So we either have an embedded informant or we have a deep throat who's reporting after the fact.
As special counsel Robert Mueller enters the second year of the Russia probe, reports of the FBI informant are not likely to help what is an already tense relationship between President Trump and the Department of Justice, with the president and his staff frequently dismissing the investigation. White House advisor Kellyanne Conway spoke to reporters on Friday.
You've had over a year to prove this, and you failed to. And yet you're still talking about a hypothetical, but with new information that there may have been an FBI informant, you're not willing to accept that hypothetical.
Former Trump campaign aide Carter Page tells CBS News that the Washington Post's reporting on his interactions with the former professor and informant are in fact accurate. The FBI has offered no comment on this story. Don?
Mola Lange, thank you.
Yeah.
Now to balance the story a little bit, there's a lot of maybe even proof, maybe even admittance. But during the Reagan run for president in 1980 with George H.W. Bush, former CIA director, as his vice president, they had implanted a CIA spook in the Jimmy Carter White House.
Yeah, it wasn't the same guy involved in that? Halper, wasn't he also involved?
He was. I think this professor had something to do with it. And the idea was to keep an eye on his foreign policy in case he pulled a fast one to get out of the bind he was in Iran.
Yeah.
So, and this kind of thing goes on. But when Trump comes out and says his Trump Tower was bugged and Obama did it and all this other, I mean, he said that stuff and everyone just mocked him when it probably was all true.
And not just that, but there was a cool report that came out over the weekend about our favorite listening device. And I found a clip that illustrates very well what these things do.
It can be as small as a suitcase.
Most people don't know about it.
Placed anywhere at any time.
Our privacy isn't what it once was.
The technology, sometimes referred to by the brand name Stingray, mimics the signal of a cell phone tower and tricks nearby phones into connecting to it instead.
If you live close to someone who's a target, you could still get caught up.
And the News 4i team found in D.C., Maryland, and Northern Virginia, those targets are everywhere.
We just got another one on 2 networks.
Aaron Turner uses special software loaded onto 3 cell phones with 3 different carriers.
So when you see these red bars, those are very high suspicion events.
And we found them in high-profile areas, like outside the Trump International Hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue, going across the 14th Street Bridge into Crystal City. And we got picked up twice while driving along K Street, lobbying Central.
It looks like they don't consider us to be interesting, and so they've dropped us.
Every cell phone has a unique identifying number. The phone catcher technology can harness thousands at a time. DHS has warned that rogue devices could prevent connected phones from making 911 calls, saying if this type of attack occurs during an emergency, it could prevent victims from receiving assistance.
Absolutely, that's a worry.
D.C. Councilwoman Mary Cheh says the spy technology should be a concern for all who live and work in the district. Our test phones found the devices in 40 different locations, just driving around for a few hours.
I suppose if you spent more time, you'd find even more.
Especially in her ward, where many of the streets are lined with embassies. They were a hotbed during our test.
They're doing the interrogation, right, of who we are, and then the white bar represents when they release us.
Our phones stayed connected the longest right near the Russian embassy. We got picked up twice on International Drive near China and Israel, and driving north on Massachusetts Avenue near Romania and Turkey. Our expert says they all have the technology.
You know, governments do this to each other all the time, and laws schmoz,
Which is a problem. The spy technology poses a risk to national and economic security, but there's little our government can do with devices on foreign soil.
A law that we had could not tell these embassies what they can and cannot do.
He says the good news is about half the devices we found were likely law enforcement investigating crimes or our government using them defensively.
Oh, that's the good news. Thanks, Channel 4.
We did find a few near Langley and the Pentagon.
Oh, yeah, we just got two.
Even in Bethesda's Kenwood neighborhood, near Palisades in D.C., and along Old Dominion Drive in McLean.
That's a fishy one.
Turner says it could be some sort of corporate espionage.
Maybe someone's involved in a high-level negotiation on a business deal, or maybe it's a government employee who's involved in a regulatory ruling.
And if you've ever wondered why you just can't make a call from inside your home or office,
it could be why.
Well, there you go. A comprehensive report on the Stingray everywhere. They're just everywhere.
Yeah, it sounds like they're literally everywhere.
So it's not hard to eavesdrop on what's going on. Not everyone has a secured phone who drops into the White House. When I went to the palace, to the Dutch palace for lunch with the King and the Queen, what did I do when I walked out? I jump on the phone. Tina, I got to tell you all about it. That's how it goes. That's how you find out what happened in the meeting.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
Yeah. I'm sure somebody was listening.
Anyway.
I, meanwhile, would probably note that I forgot my phone.
Yes. You would walk into a phone booth if they still exist. Yeah. Hey, Mimi, I forgot my phone. But let me tell you how cool the meeting was. And just to wrap up our A block here, regardless of what the truth is, the media will say whatever they want or whatever they need, or if it's Mockingbird, they'll say what they're told to say. Great new article came out today about the Las Vegas gunman, Stephen Paddock.
Would you be closer?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is, I knew it. I knew it. People who came into contact with Stephen Paddock in the weeks before he killed 58 people at a Las Vegas concert last October said he railed against the government, behaved oddly, and expressed a willingness to die. Yes, one woman interviewed by the police said she sat in the booth of a diner eating dinner a few days before the shooting and overheard a man in the next booth.
It took him this long to get these stooges together?
She subsequently recognized this Paddock. The woman said Paddock was discussing with another man deadly standoffs between federal agents and anti-government activists at Ruby Ridge in Idaho, yes, and Waco, Texas. They kept mentioning the 25th anniversary of Ruby Ridge. I didn't hear them planning anything, but they were speaking of things that struck me as odd. At the time, I just thought, strange guys, and I wanted to leave. So there you go. It's clear that he was just... Oh, wait, here's another guy. An inmate at local county detention center told investigators that 3 weeks before the shooting, Paddock answered his online ad for the design to a device that converts semi-automatic AR-15s to automatic. When they met in a store parking lot, the man said Paddock said he would give me $500 apiece to make an unspecified number of the converters. I guess he's talking about bump stocks.
No.
But, no?
I think he's talking about something else.
Yeah, like a real machine gun
little hand
converter. The hand crank, or it could just be a different lower.
Or it could be, how about, changing the mechanism so just automatic?
Yeah, modified lower, sure. After the man said he didn't want to go to prison for that, he said Paddock went on an anti-government rant. So he went from railing against the government to an anti-government rant. Quote, he kept carrying on about just anti-government stuff, said the man, who was booked into jail shortly after the massacre on an unrelated charge. He asked me if I remembered Hurricane Katrina and said, that was just a dry run for law enforcement and military to start kicking down doors and confiscating guns. Somebody has to wake up the American people and get them to arm themselves. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made. Wow.
So so now that the narrative is he's some anti-government nutcase, and so in protest he shoots down a bunch of country and western revelers that are innocent, victims of nothing to do with the government. He's going to do that? Is that the way it's going to go down? Does that make sense to anybody?
Yes, that's what they're saying.
Nice try.
And with that, I'd like to thank you for your courage and say in the morning to you, John C. with a C stands for collusion, anyone? Dvorak.
In the morning to you, Mr. Adam Curry. In the morning to all ships at sea, boots on the ground, feet in the air, subs in the water, and all the dames and knights out there.
Yes, in the morning to our troll room, noagendastream.com. Almost good to see everybody there. Got some real trolls there this morning. I also would like to say, trolling you. Oh yeah, of course, that's their job. They also give me great one-liners and other fantastic things for the show. But
I haven't heard any today.
Yeah, yes, there were a couple. Also in the morning to Cesium 137, he brought us the artwork for episode 1034. That was the Privilege Walk. And he sent us the official life-saving, no-agenda roll of quarters, which you need to hold in your hand at all times when walking on the streets, these dangerous suburban streets.
Yeah.
And it's a $33 roll of quarters. It was a nice piece, funny, relevant, liked it a lot. Simple, it had it. It was pretty. It jumps out off of all the Meads. A new abbrev I learned, John, the Meads.
I don't know what it even means.
Social media sites, the Meads.
Nah.
Yes.
It sounds like, the problem
it's being used.
It's honey wine. It's honey wine.
Hey,
it's honey wine. You can't mean something else.
It's being used.
You're saying all the Meads. Now I'm saying, how many Meads can you find? I've only seen one or two in a store.
It's 2 E's.
It's being verbalized. Most of these abbreves are being verbalized.
Okay, but will you just trust me that the millennials often use the word the Meads?
Well, they should be scolded.
Yeah, but don't scold me. Scold them.
I'm scolding you for following up. You should be scolding them, not repeating it.
All right. Anyway,
more scolding.
NoAgendaArtGenerator.com. Thank you very much to the artist. It really does mean a lot because it's a part of our success. And your value is appreciated. And we have some people who sent us monetary value as a part of our value for value system. We have a few executive and associate executive producers.
No, we do. Servility starts it off with $333.33 from Maryland. And he says, needs jobs karma and encourage all douchebags to do their duty and contribute. Sir Anonymous from Lower Slobovia, drive on those roads in China 5 years from now. They build great things, but they fall apart fast. There's some truth to that. I don't know how the roads are, though. This is why they obsess with made in USA, Japan, and Germany. As they say in China, build for show.
So you need to don't
I'd like to know who is Servility that knows this, because it just rings true to me.
Well, he's from Maryland. Just saying.
Don't laugh. Why you are laughing? Shut up.
Jobs, 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 and
Shut up.
jobs. Let's vote for jobs.
You've got karma.
Sir Cal of Lavender Blossoms in Northville, Michigan,
yes,
333.
Who makes a totally outstanding array of products.
Yeah, what's the name of the website?
LavenderBlossoms.org.
.org. ITM, fellas, keep up the good work. Please send us the goat karma as the state. It's 2 in a row.
Yep.
As the state is trying to control the sale of CBD products. Yes, we played a couple of clips recently. Everybody is. It's because it impinges on the drug companies.
Hello.
And it's cheap. Got to get a lawyer soon. See what the fuss is all about. It seems to have helped a lot of people so far. I wish we could keep that up. And it has. It's helped a lot of people. But
on this show, certainly, Sir Cal of Lavender Blossoms, we thank you. Here's your requested karma.
You've got karma.
Chris Dillon says, love the show. He came in with $333. Lavender Blossoms came in with $333.33. And he just says, love the show. There may be an email or something. I didn't get one.
Well, while you read on, I'll check.
Yeah, why don't you? Yeah. Dame Jennifer becomes associate executive producer at $203.33. ITM outstanding shows lately, but I would expect nothing less. I haven't been an EP since show 333. Well, she's been keeping up with the shows, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But was able to earn my damehood in late 2013 with a monthly subscription and other various small donations. Sign up for a subscription, people. Thank you for continuing to keep us sane. My mother actually watches Rachel Maddow unironically and the holidays could have been very difficult. My husband and I were able to keep our cool and the peace thanks to our no-agenda mindset while we visited her.
Life-saving tips, people.
Yeah, don't get into arguments with
lost causes.
Idiots.
Lost causes.
No offense to your mother.
Yeah.
I was total Obama bot when I started listening in early 2011, and I'm so grateful for what y'all do.
Thank you.
A note about creepy YouTube suggestions. My husband and I were in the car behind a Mustang, and I mentioned that I'd heard Ford was no longer going to make sedans besides the Mustang. When we got home and opened YouTube on our Roku, one of our top suggested videos was all about Ford's announcement. Totally creeped us out. We didn't log into YouTube on that Roku, so in theory, there should be no connection between our phones, which were in the car with us, and apparently listening, and the Roku app. No jingles, just Jobs Karma, please, for my fledgling voiceover business, jlbvoice.com, jlbvoice.com, all one word. I'm using this donation as an advertising expense. Well, you got your money's worth.
Yeah.
XOXO Dame Jennifer.
So he wants a Jobs Karma. Yeah, so I'm going to just guess that they were talking about this, and maybe she or her husband did a quick little search to see if it was true. Up came an article, track, boom, bing.
That would be my guess.
That would be kind of the way it went, I think. Oh, wait, she needs Jobs Karma.
Jobs, 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 and jobs. Let's vote for jobs.
You've got karma.
And then I'm going to go to the email and see if there's a Hager. There's not, which is too bad. Michael Hager came in with $200 from St. Louis, Missouri. No commentary whatsoever, and no email that I can find, unless he has some screwy email.
I don't find anything either.
It could be under something else. Timothy Cato in Waipahu, Hawaii, 200. And he says, what does he say here? Aloha, gents.
Aloha.
Couple of hundos for the cause. NJNK. If you're, we're looking for the hundos.
Hundos.
If you're having trouble with my town's name, pronounce it Waipahu.
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 Why? Because I like the pahu.
Waipahu.
I like the pahu.
Okay. That concludes our executive producers and associate executive producers for Show 1035. I want to thank each and every one of them, and we'll be back with more contributions later in the show.
And just like Hollywood, where you've got the executive producer and the associate executive producer credits up front, this is what we do here on our show, doing it for 10 years strong, surviving purely on financial donations, value as we call it, from the network, which is everybody who's a producer, which is pretty much everybody, if you're listening and contributing. As John said, another thank you coming up, $50 and above later on the show. And we have another show on Thursday. Remember us at
Dvorak.org/NA.
It's life-saving tips, everybody. That means you can take them, go out there, propagate them.
Our formula is this. We go out, we hit people in the mouth.
Order. Shut up, slave. Shut up, slave.
I'm thinking about the meeting, Dame Jennifer with the mom and the husband.
Yeah.
And she's she's spewing stuff about Rachel, and the twosome are there not wanting to get into an argument. I think one of the other techniques you could use is you can do one of those. Rachel's got this funny look that she can employ at the drop of a hat, where she kind of brings her eyebrows together and then brings up the middle of her face with kind of a sad, oh my, you poor thing look. And I think that if you just, when people start going off on this Dementia B stuff, you could just give that look and just like you're
just
so
give
sad.
the look. Just give them the
You're
look.
So sad for them.
Give them the Rach look.
The Rach look.
The Rach look. I got to write that down. The Rach look. A little entremont before we get into a heavier topic, as it's back.
Ebola.
The Ebola virus has spread to a city along the Congo River in the Democratic Republic of Congo. That is scary because lots of people travel through a port city, and the Ebola virus, of course, is highly contagious, as you will remember from the massive outbreak in West Africa a few years ago. That outbreak killed more than 11,000 people. Well, the World Health...
You're not going to be able to hear the report if you're playing the recorder.
I'm hearing it very nicely.
The organization is working with local authorities in Congo to try to stop the spread of the disease. And we have reached Dr. Peter Salama. He is the WHO's Deputy Director General for Emergencies. We've caught him on the line in Geneva, Switzerland. Hey, Dr. Salama. There must be major lessons learned from the situation in 2014 with the last major outbreak. What have you learned that's informing the way that you're preparing this time around?
What are you learning, Rolf?
Firstly, we were too slow last time around, the international community, including WHO. So we've been pretty fast off the ground.
Okay, we got to hurry up. We got to fast. We took too long to get the money last time, people.
So the outbreak was only confirmed on May the 8th. We've sent in a mobile lab. We've ensured that personal protective equipment is on the ground and agreed on the critical priorities in a response plan. So we're really establishing a no regrets policy. We want to make sure that we don't let this one get out of control.
I like the no regrets policy. I think that's what that should be our policy.
No regrets. That guy doesn't sound like he was on the phone to me.
Well, hold on. He continues.
But what we can say is the international response has been quick thus far. We have a vaccine which is now in the DRC and almost ready to be deployed.
Hold on. We have a vaccine.
And that's what this is all about.
That's in the DNC and ready to be deployed. But
we have a vaccine which is now in the DRC and almost ready to be deployed. But really important to remember, the vaccine is not a silver bullet.
Oh,
the vaccine
well, hold on a second. Not the DNC, the DRC. It's not a silver bullet? Isn't that the whole point of the vaccine?
Yeah.
Isn't the
what
vaccine...
kind of vaccines are they making that? They're doing this constantly. It's like the measles thing crapped out, and people are getting measles, even though they had a shot.
So it's not a good vaccine.
That's what I'm thinking.
Remember, the vaccine is not a silver bullet. The vaccine really rests on the foundation of having those basic public health measures of good surveillance, good contact tracing, good laboratories, and really good engagement with the communities. So they understand what we're doing and what we're recommending in terms of safe burials, avoiding traditional healers, and really using the communities as an asset to stop this outbreak.
I'm sorry. That makes no sense to me. The vaccine is the silver bullet. Doesn't that solve everything? We have a vaccine against Ebola. We should be giving it to kids everywhere. Shoot them up.
Apparently it doesn't work. It's a bogus vaccine.
Ebola, they come from Africa.
Everybody know. I don't know. I find it very, very suspicious, this vaccine. But it's back. It's back. Yeah, maybe you have to do a new version. 2.0 needs to be funded. I don't know, but this is everyone they just love the Ebola stories. It's like one guy has Ebola. We got a vaccine.
Well, besides you're going to do these entrepreneurs, I got a little thing for you. It becomes a phrase from the Shays idea. Actually, no, I'm going to do it later in the show. I'm going to. You can continue. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I was interested in the little thing you have for me.
It was the little thing.
All right. Well, I'll stick with Big Pharma then.
Yay.
Sorry?
Yay for Big Pharma.
Yay. Let's talk about Big Pharma. This was one of those rare moments when PBS did us justice. Oops. One of my knobs came off. Hello, knob. One of my fader knobs stuck to my finger and came right off the board. Pressing too hard, everybody? Katherine Eban is an author. She has written many books about Big Pharma, not flattering. She was on PBS on, what is this, like Brilliant Minds, Upside Minds, what is it? Something Minds. It's a series. And actually we have let's see, I think we have a little intro about her first. Here we go.
Katherine Eban is an investigative reporter whose articles on pharmaceutical counterfeiting, gun trafficking, and coercive interrogations by the CIA have won international attention and numerous awards. Author of Dangerous Doses, a true story of cops, counterfeiters, and the contamination of America's drug supply, Eban uncovered for Fortune magazine the comprehensive picture of how under-policed generic companies operate. As she writes, it's not a tale of cutting corners or lax manufacturing practices, but one of outright fraud, in which the company knowingly sells substandard drugs around the world, including in the U.S., while working to deceive regulators. Eban adds that the impact on patients will likely never be known, but it's clear that millions of people worldwide got medicine of dubious quality.
So this woman knows a lot about the history of drugs. Certainly the FDA, the United States pharmaceutical industry, and she should avoid small aviation and hot tubs if possibly. Let's go into where most pharmaceuticals that we consume here, certainly in the United States of Gitmo Nation, where they're actually produced.
What percent of drugs that are prescribed in the U.S. are generic, and what percent are being conceived, made overseas, or at least in conditions that are not subject to regulation?
Right. Well, in theory, all the conditions are subject to regulation. The question is, how effective is that regulation? Mm-hmm. How well does it work? But let's go back to numbers for a second. 85% of all the drugs prescribed in this country now are generic. The majority of those are made overseas. Over 40% of those alone are made in India. Take a step back, 80% of all the active ingredient used in all our drugs, whether brand or generic, are coming from China. Now, as somebody explained to me, China is definitely a concern and a risk. As we've known, they have been the source of contaminated heparin, tainted dog food, all kinds of troubling lapses have occurred in products from China. But there is a distinction to be made, which is China does not make the bulk of our finished doses. So they're making active ingredients. The bulk of the finished doses in generics are coming from India. What that means is they're making final pills, capsules, and vials that are literally leaving those manufacturing plants in India and coming directly to our drugstores. So that is the last stop where drugs of poor quality can be detected.
Now, I didn't know this. I had no idea that most of our drugs are, the China connection is one thing, but most of it's in India. No wonder India is selling all kinds of drugs online. And it's always touted here as counterfeit. No, it's the same. It's like the fake Gucci bags. It's probably real.
Where there's a lot of real stuff that's sold as counterfeit. That's true. You run into this all over Asia. If you float around enough, you find it in Korea, you find it in Malaysia, you find them all over the place. And there's the levels of corruption in that regard are extremely high.
Yeah. One of the topics that you introduced years ago was the problem we have with antibiotics, that they don't work anymore. And wouldn't you know it, this lady has a little bit of background, the history of antibiotics.
For my upcoming book, I did a lot of research on the history of antibiotic production, and it's really a thrilling story how penicillin was discovered and how the British flew it in spy planes over to the U.S. and got antibiotic production going with the help of the U.S. government. But then over the decades, slowly, all of that antibiotic production moved overseas to the point where really the U.S. makes almost no antibiotics at all. All of our antibiotics are made overseas. So if you're going to go and fill a prescription for your kid at a drugstore, an antibiotic, they've got an ear infection, it's almost certain that that antibiotic is going to have been made in India. So it's a story about cost. A number of people have accused China of sending over essentially spies to Harvard University and stealing antibiotic strains. But nonetheless, the Chinese did have a long history of fermentation. They make soy sauce, they make beer, they make rice wine vinegar, and they knew how to ferment antibiotics. And they started making antibiotic salts, which are kind of like the base ingredient of antibiotics. They could do it so cheaply. So manufacturers here and in Europe said, well, why am I keeping open these factories when I can buy the active ingredients from China for a song, import them over here, and make the finished doses? And that's really what happened, is that it was just economics, and we stopped making the drugs. But it's a whole ecosystem that has been harmful because antibiotic development stopped. One of the things that I'm examining in my upcoming book is the problem of when you have poor quality generics, what does that do? That actually feeds drug resistance. If people are getting substandard doses, then drug resistance is growing as it is around the world. So this is a giant problem. I mean, this is not just a problem of a consumer in a drugstore maybe getting a substandard quality drug and they don't actually know where it was manufactured. This is a problem of public health worldwide.
Well, that certainly is an eye-opener,
I'd say.
And it makes so much sense. The Chiners make all the fermented stuff. That's what they do. It's like, damn, yeah, they do ferment. They're good fermenters. And we got the Indos making the hundos by putting it all together. In the meantime, it's all substandard. So your obvious question is, well, what's the FDA doing? As it turns out, the Food and Drug Administration was never properly funded for this type of policing, because it's not done in America. They have to go to China and they have to deal with the Chinese, have to go to India, deal with the Indians. And guess what? It's a scam.
The FDA was set up as a domestic agency. It was not an international agency. And suddenly around 2002, 3, 4, it finds itself tasked
Thanks, Bush.
with becoming a global policeman of foreign manufacturing plants. And there's a huge backlog, and they scramble to keep up, and they've got all kinds of problems. And one problem that they have is, who are they going to send to inspect these plants? Right. Does anybody even want to go over there and do these trips to India? Can they station people there? What are the diplomatic impacts of this? What are the sort of statecraft impacts of this? China doesn't even want to let our FDA inspectors in because they think they're all spies. So how are they going to solve this problem? And they solved it in a way that has actually been disastrous for public health. One of the ways that they solved it is by giving all of these manufacturing plants overseas advance notice that they're coming. So they give them
Surprise!
2 months, 3 months advance notice to say, please expect an inspection. Can you help our inspectors with transportation? Can you help them with
some hookers.
Hotel arrangements? Can you help us with visas? Can you get them an invitation letter? This is not how you do inspections to really find out what's going on in plants. And what I'm uncovering, and which we'll chronicle in full detail in this book, is that these plants have responded with these giant data falsification teams that arrive in advance or work in advance of the FDA inspections and basically inspect all the data. Now, if you're one of these plants, why are you going to invest all this money up front to develop a generic drug and submit an application to the FDA when you don't know if they're going to approve it? Wouldn't it be better and smarter to fake the data to begin with, wait to get the approval, and then scramble to try to make the drug?
So not only are we the most drugged out nation, we're getting bad shit.
Now, the thing that gets me is I don't understand why they don't use some quality control experts and just stop the stuff as it comes, as it's imported, do a random selection of various batches, and you find any flaws in other words, there's not enough drugs in the drug, and just reject the whole batch and send it back. I don't know. I don't see this being
because that
the
stops,
problem that they're talking about.
That stops the money train. Like, we're going over there, we're getting Chinese hookers and blow.
I don't think you need to go over there. You just need to stop it as it comes in.
Somehow you're confused that our government is working on our behalf. I'm thinking they're going over their party town.
Well, I'm sure that is going on.
It's
this whole story, though, it makes no sense to me because it is easily solvable.
Oh, it's easily solvable. No doubt. But come on, the FDA is corrupt. We know how corrupt they are. What she isn't going into is the parties. I'm sure just big party on down, everybody.
Well, the drug companies are notorious for that. Yeah.
So I'm going to wrap this up with, of course, we have to talk about opioids, and she has a little blurb on that.
In big pharma, where you really see the fraud is in marketing. It's in sales. Right. So we made this huge investment. We did all this research, and now we're going to try to expand all the indicators for this drug. Hey, opioids, let's market them to children. Let's market them to old folks. Let's market them to everybody. The big thing that Purdue Pharma did, and, I've written about Purdue Pharma, is they tried to basically expand who they marketed their drug to.
Normalize it.
To normalize it, exactly. They tried to normalize it to say, you know what, because our drug, they like to claim that it was non-addictive.
Right.
And therefore it could be safely marketed by ordinary doctors to sort of ordinary pain patients.
Yeah.
That it was no longer going to be just reserved for a dying cancer patient. It was going to be marketed to, anybody with a backache. That's what happened there.
There you go. That's the scam. It's in the marketing where we live. We see it every day. And here's the wrap up.
Catherine Eban is an investigative reporter whose articles on
oops, that's the wrong one. I'm sorry. Wrap up. Oh, was that? No, that was the last one. I'm sorry. That's, that was it. I'm done.
Well, that's disgusting.
Yeah. I can't wait to read her forthcoming book.
If it even shows up.
This just in. You're going to get a kick out of this. A newly unsealed FBI search warrant shows Las Vegas gunman Stephen Paddock had a ZTE phone. Oh, yeah. Connect the dots.
What?
Connect the
They're
dots.
They're just trying to throw that in for no good reason?
Isn't it great?
Slam ZTE for just gratuitously.
Well, isn't it interesting that Trump, was just all over ZTE?
He used Bing, too, as a search engine.
Well, he's a smart man. Why do you think he's president? Kids, if you want to be president, use Bing. How about that? Huh?
I have a Trump. They have a couple of little slam items that they sent out just for no good reason. I thought I have two of them. One of them is Trump and Melania tweet. Did you hear? This one is a good one.
While her exact kidney issue has not been released, the White House says her treatment was for a benign condition, and the president tweeted it was good to have her home, even though in his haste to tweet, he misspelled her name and spelled it Melanie, and he also thanked everyone for their well wishes for his wife.
Damn!
What an idiot!
Damn autocorrect.
And then they had this report.
Wait. Did you hear the running joke was? She had a tumor removed from her kidney, but Trump kept coming back. There's tons of jokes.
That you got that from the chat room? Is that one of the singers?
No. I got no. That's from the face bags. No, that's the joke I saw out there in the meds.
So you did it again. You're drinking honey wine? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, are you saying SOA?
SOA?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, here's another one. Now, here's what I call the gratuitous. Why do you even have this story on the network news? This is the one that, unfortunately, I misspelled damn near every word in this thing, but it's just grabbing ATV straw.
Okay. Back here tonight, and reports of a new meeting at Trump Tower during the campaign that has drawn the attention of the special prosecutor, Robert Mueller. The New York Times and the Wall Street Journal reporting on the August 2016 meeting, Donald Trump Jr. meeting with an Israeli social media specialist and an emissary for two wealthy Arab princes who presented a social media campaign to help his father win the election. A lawyer for Don Jr. confirms the meeting, but says the president's son told them he was not interested. Next to breaking news out of...
Stop the presses. Is that the stupidest story ever?
You got to do something when it was
they're going to start. This is like a scandal now. Every time he took a crap, do they have all that documented?
And people often ask why we don't rail on Trump the way we used to rail on Obama. It has nothing to do with the president. It has to do with the media. the media is what we're against. Yeah, that's what we're trying to figure out. What is their agenda? Where's that coming from?
Well, it's obviously coming from the intelligence agencies that own them.
Yes,
and the large corporations.
Yes.
And the days of media, independent media, seem to be pretty close to being over.
I mean, intelligence and defense are corporate media. Defense is all, corporate. Defense is all corporations. It's huge. Lockheed, Boeing, Rand.
All the big boys.
And intelligence is Facebook, Amazon with the cloud for the... Now they want to store the they want to Amazon or whatever... It's not necessarily Amazon, I understand. And they have a great name for it, too. I forget. But anyway, this intelligence cloud they want to be able to store nuclear secrets in the cloud. Come on. What are we talking about, people?
This is crazy.
Storing it in the cloud. That's a great name. What the hell is the name of that? Is it one of those acronyms? Ah, damn it. Maybe the troll room will know.
So now I got my little tidbit for you.
Okay.
This one really gets me because I watch cooking shows on Saturday morning, and I have to say I watched the Martha Stewart stuff, and you wonder and they're actually quite good. She has good recipes, she has good technique, she does all this stuff. But then when you look at the credits at the end, she has 5 chefs, a recipe writer, and all these other people in the background doing all the real heavy lifting, and she just comes out as the presenter. I mean, everybody else that does these shows, like Jacques Pepin, he doesn't have a bunch of chefs and recipe writers. He just knows how to cook. But she, I've never had the impression that she was much more than a woman who knew how to arrange do floral arrangements and make tables look nice. But she presents herself as Martha Bakes and Martha Cooks, and it's a cooking school, supposedly. But it's because she's got a huge staff of very, very talented people. And so what she presents is always, except once in a while, I think they pull a fast one on her. But she presents extremely good stuff. But she always says certain things that just are irksome. One of the words she says constantly is scrumptious, which is a word that is a pet peeve. I don't like the word scrumptious. It's creepy. And when people say it all the time, it's scrumptious. It doesn't mean anything to me.
Well, it means something. Clearly, it means something.
It means nothing. It means you're an idiot. Now, so here's Martha Stewart yammering, and there's something in here that bugs me.
Places to a platter or to individual plates. So gorgeous. And serve while it is piping hot.
There's a lot to unpack there of irksomeness. So gorgeous.
She constantly says, I think in this show she said it at least 3 times, piping hot.
Yes, piping hot.
What does that mean?
It's a phrase from the Shays. It's a 30 under 30. 30 from the 30s.
I tried to look it up, and I'll read you some stuff about piping hot. What is it? It means very hot.
Like a stovepipe? Like a stovepipe hot? Is that where it comes from?
Yeah, I'm going to read the origin of the phrase. In Scotland, ceremonial dishes of food were often brought to the table to the accompaniment of bagpipes as they were piped in. This could easily be imagined to be the origin of piping hot. It isn't, though, nor does the phrase derive from food being piped aboard ships. The derivation of this little phrase is the sizzling whistling sound made by steam escaping from very hot food, which is similar to the sound of a high-pitched musical pipe. I don't buy this.
Oh, wait. You can do that. You can emulate that sound on your recorder.
Well, I can. Yeah, here we go.
Here we go. Here's piping hot in audio. There you go. Yes. Oh, you're nailing it. It's just so good.
No, that's bullcrap. I have never had a whistling sound come from anything other than one of those boilers that has the whistle on it. This is nonsense. And there's no evidence that they can find out what this really came from. Chaucer, in fact, used the term in 1390. He said they sent her sweetened wine and well-spiced ale and waffles piping hot out of the fire.
Well, what kind of food did they make back then? Maybe you're not doing the right food.
I have no idea, but this term that she keeps saying
lobster.
It drives me nuts. It's like it's really annoying to say piping hot when nobody even knows the origin of this stupid phrase.
When you boil a lobster, it can whistle.
Yeah.
You're like, Hey, get me out of here.
Closed.
Well, I'm glad that you did some work and were able to combine that with your personal life. It's a Joint Enterprise Defense Infrastructure, JEDI. Get it?
That's cute.
Yeah, they're so cute. JEDI. But I don't think they're going to give it all to Amazon. That apparently that's off the table.
Well, Amazon's. I mean, Bezos is playing the good game. He's appealing to them. He controls the Washington Post, which is anti-Trump.
Mm-hmm.
It's all good. I don't know why they wouldn't just give it to Bezos. Maybe he's getting too powerful. He's the world's richest man now. I understand.
Well, of course it's too powerful. He's way too powerful. Let's do a little Iran Bitcoin check. Ooh, we are on the rise a little bit. I mean, here on the No Agenda Show, we will let you know if something's going on with Iran based upon the price of Bitcoin, currently 8,512. We are back on the rise on CNBC.
Our data partners at Kensho on what happens after the U.S. government puts new sanctions on Iran, as it did yesterday. A week later, oil is up more than 1.5%.
Woohoo! Well, that scam worked. It's a classic.
1.5% is nothing. It's not as though it's skyrocketed.
No, I know, but you get my point. But the EU is now considering direct transfers with the Iranian central bank, which would make oil for euros.
Yeah, that's not good.
This is a bad idea. I don't understand. Are they crazy?
I don't know why they haven't looked at history and see what happens to people who try this scam.
Yeah, we know this is not a good idea. Why would you do that? Just why?
All right. Is that to close the Iranian section?
Yeah, that's all I got on Iran and nothing else.
Here we go. Here's a breaking news. This is a kind of a local story, but it's kind of taken over the whole country. And it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's a fact. Less babies in California.
No. Gee, I'm from the future.
California's birth rate has fallen to its lowest level in a century. The CDC says 471,000 babies were born last year, down 3% from the year before. The current birth rate is even lower now than it was during the Great Depression. California's drop is consistent with a decrease nationwide, but it comes at a time when the general population is aging.
The rate of people over 65 is increasing dramatically, that we have to have more babies or have people having more children.
Experts suggest that many women are waiting longer to have babies until they are more financially stable or not having them at all.
Well, you're just baiting me. You're just leading me along.
A lot of this, of course, has to do with the sending all the kids to college and then breaking them with unbelievable debt.
Yes.
The whole thing's a scam.
Well, and of course, we know that they still have the urge and they still need to have that parental,
so they get a dog.
Dogs are people, too.
That's right. Dogs are people, too. And we have a note. We have a note from Michelle. And Michelle is in Scandinavia. She lives in the Okanagan Valley. What do you think it is?
Okanagan.
It's in BC. Pretty liberal overall in a huge tourist area. I currently work at a dog boarding kennel, though not for much longer. I can say with authority that some people are absolutely nuts about their pets and don't consider them as anything less than a true child. You should see some of the feeding/care instructions we get. You ready, John? Some instructions from the pet owners?
Go.
My dog will not drink tap water. You need to use only filtered or bottled water or he won't drink. Meanwhile, the dog drinks out of muddy puddles while in our care. Yeah. Won't drink tap water? Sure. My dog cannot be left in a crate. I absolutely do not want her confined like that. It's cruel and it freaks her out and she cries. I registered her as an emotional support animal so I can have her on my lap while flying for that very reason. Which just blew my mind.
Emotional support animal, her?
No. Yeah, well, yes, exactly.
She sounds like the emotional support animal for the dog.
Yes, and this blew my mind when I'm like, oh my God, these people, they don't need, their pets, but dogs in particular, are so much their children.
I am glad these people are taking themselves out of the gene pool.
Meanwhile, the dog is placed in a crate for 10 to 20 minutes for her safety, while a larger dog is in the immediate vicinity where she is quiet as a mouse and falls asleep in the cage. She's so comfortable. By the way, this owner also puts a bow on her dog's head that she changes every day and makes us make them for her, even though it's ridiculously simple to make your own at home. I have showed her how. Talk about high maintenance. It's different. You know, my first wife used to do that. We had a Yorkshire Terrier, and she would put a bow. It was a male too. Would you put
The old gay dog.
The irony, the dog's name was Blondie, which was Hitler's dog's name. So just irony. We also see a lot of dogs on anti-anxiety medications as well. I could go on, but it's simply too much. I find that it's more common than not to have pet parents act this way. However, there are still a few people that recognize their pet is a pet and not people. I'm starting a new job. Can you use some karma for it? Yeah, we'll get you that. Thank you very much, Michelle. Appreciate it. So it's pretty rampant. And now downtown Denver, just read this morning, and this is a problem we haven't talked about yet, because I think we can agree that it's really urban areas that are doing this dog thing, replacing children with dogs and being the emotional support mammal for your pet. Grass and trees under siege. Downtown Denver's thousands of peeing pooches spark call to protect urban greenery. And this is true. We have around our building everywhere. Please don't let your dog pee in the... Everyone, the dog out the building, right into the shrubs where it's a sign. They're standing there holding the dog, and the sign says, please, don't let your dog do his business here. And they're just letting him pee. It destroys everything. It's destroying our city. It is. I'm very irked about it, but I think that's obvious. So, anyway.
Dogs are people too.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good in and out outro. Yeah.
That's the best.
Yeah, I think this is an issue. I by the way, who's the woman who sent the kennel stuff to you?
Michelle?
Yeah, Michelle. I should get a hold of her, because I think there's a book in this. I mean, she's probably got the tip of the iceberg.
Confessions of a Kennel Caretaker.
Yeah, something like that.
Ooh, like when you think we're feeding your dog bottled water, we're letting him drink out of muddy puddles.
Yeah, all the nutty stuff like that. That's a classic. And I believe it to be true. Dogs aren't picky about their water.
Why don't you write it with her?
They drink I could do that. They drink from the toilet.
Huh.
Dog's nightmare is the lid hits him on the head.
And I don't hate dogs. I really like dogs.
Uh-huh.
Man, I'll tell you. So they're expecting in one apartment building. No, I'm sorry, not one apartment building. In Denver, 3,000 out of 3,000 apartments, 1,200 of them will have dogs. That's pretty significant.
Yeah.
There's also
That's
a movie.
A lot of dogs.
There's also a movie in here.
A lot of dog poop.
And when we have, some kind of high-pitched ultrasonic sound that is broadcast through web browsers everywhere and through phones, and just makes the dogs go nuts and attack everybody.
That would be great.
It's a good movie. And people would be really freaked out. Like, crap, man, that could really happen. Especially with Trump as president.
Yeah. I think you saw Kingsman 1. You had the...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. That's the concept. Except...
Same story.
Yeah, except it'll be the dogs and not the people themselves.
All right.
I have... let me see. I just got a little mini bit here about the Koch brothers. They're back on the scene. Of course, we have midterms coming up, so, you know.
Koch brothers. Those dangerous Koch brothers.
But there's a twist this time around.
The Koch brothers are libertarians. They're not conservatives. So they clashed with the president in a number of ways, especially the direction of the Republican Party. So where the president wants tariffs, they want free trade. Where the president wants a hard line on immigration, they want a fix for dreamers. Where the president has decided to sign a spending bill that would increase the deficit, the Koch brothers have really opposed that from the start. So what are they doing now? The Hispanic outreach arm of the Koch network is doing something they've never done before, and that is to spend money praising Democrats at the federal level who they've worked with on a solution, on a legislative solution for these dreamers. So they're going to send out about more than 100,000 mailers to various people in the districts of 5 Democrats. Now, it's notable that one of these folks is the chairman of the House Democratic campaign arm in a midterm year. We also want to note that there are 9 Republican lawmakers, so they're not going all in with Democrats. It's just notable that this is one of the first times they're actually spending money to praise Democrats.
Koch brothers! Who are the Democrats going to kick around this election then?
I don't know what they're going to do.
It doesn't seem
the Koch brothers have always been kind of like, they support public radio, public broadcasting. Most of the money goes to the PBS NewsHour.
Yeah. Well, but for sure. But at the same time, we know that the Koch brothers, everything has been bought and paid for. Koch brothers, they control everything.
And they, hated Trump and put their money against him, and he won. So how powerful can they be?
Yeah, right.
I don't know. So I have a clip of this is kind of the anti-gun thing, which I guess relates to an earlier story. But this one particular incident really has me galled because of the way Jackie Speer, local congressman, in her anti-gun Democrat, anti-gun rant. It's just disingenuous. It's bull crap. It's got nothing to do with anything. And it's still presented the way it's presented as you listen to it right here.
Woman Jackie Speer continues to advocate for tighter restrictions on guns.
As a survivor of gun violence, I know what it's like to live with it the rest of your life. We can do better than this. There was a time in this country where the NRA wasn't dictating what we did as a nation, and we've got to get back to that.
You might recall Speer was shot 5 times during the Jonestown Massacre back in 1978. Congressman Leo Ryan was killed.
She's a survivor of gun violence in another country. This is like saying that all of our veterans that came back from the Iraq War or anything else are all survivors of gun violence.
Yeah. Just like I'm the survivor of the war on drugs.
It's nonsense. She wasn't a survivor of any gun violence that took place in the United States. This was in a foreign country.
What happened to her?
She went down there with Congressman Ryan to Jim Jones's operation to see what the hell was going on because, it was stupid to go down there. But they went down there to see what's going on because it was a cult that this San Francisco preacher had set up in Guyana. And I had about 900 to 1,000 followers there. And he was brutalizing them, using them as slave labor, sex slaves. He was just a horrible person. And but it was praised by all the liberals. They thought this was great because he was doing good work.
You're not pronouncing it right. It's liberals.
Liberals. Anyway, so he there was a lot of complaints. Someone got the word out. Maybe somebody even escaped. And he was like running a prison thing in the jungle of Guyana.
Oh.
And so Ryan decides to make a big scene and is going to go down there and investigate. Congressional, and he took a crew of people with him, like maybe 10 people, and they looked around. He didn't see too much going on. He was leaving. He was going to go fly back. They didn't know what to think, and so they started shooting at the party as they were getting on the planes, and they killed him, shot Jackie 2 or 3 times as she was trying to get out. And, I guess they finally ran back into the jungle, and then she came back as a victim of gun violence. But this was not any sort of normalized gun violence. It was a screwball situation. After that is when Jones thought the jig was up and he decided to make everyone drink the Kool-Aid, and he killed 900 people who are buried in a very obscure cemetery in Oakland, which I discovered. Well, in a mass grave.
While you were telling me that story, it just kind of hit me. We're a little slow on the ball about the Ebola story. Today is Election Day.
Election Day where?
In the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Oh, okay. Well,
so they want to keep people home. Don't go and vote. Stay home. Scary Ebola. We need people. We have a vaccine. Stay at home. Stay at home. No, wait.
Stay at home, citizens. Your vaccine is coming. Stay at home. Do not leave your home, citizens. Your vaccine is coming. It will work. Your vaccine is coming. Stay at home, citizens.
Yeah, it could be. Who is it going on about the Congo being the world's greatest place? Manny Patinkin.
Oh, right. Hold on a second. Was that before the Ebola crisis? The Redux? Yeah. Hold on. Yeah. Patinkin.
I kept calling it Potemkin as though there's the Russian guy, but no, Patinkin. Somebody called me out on it. Yeah, he's talking about the Congo.
What would you have? How would you have spelled his name?
Manny.
Oh, Manny? No, but his last name?
PIT something.
PIT something.
Oh, yeah, it'd be Pit. I'm sure.
PITA. I
don't think so. Patinkin is Pitkin, I think, or it could be Pite. I don't know.
I can't find it. That's for sure. I can't find the clips.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's because of no, can't find it.
I had my record.
Anyway, okay. Well, so there you go. So seems like the Ebola thing is probably the Ebola scare, maybe related to having people stay home. We'll see what happens if there's going to be riots or what goes on today. It's a show day after all. Maybe we should just briefly.
The best thing I ever did was getting off the grid.
Getting off the grid, baby. There's tons of emails still coming in. And this is not really so much about getting off the grid right now, but this is more about the tracking. We got a number of very interesting emails. I think you got this one as well from one of our producers who used to work in the United Arab Emirates at an LBS, a location-based services provider.
Yeah.
And he said, in the morning, gents, as my contribution to the show, I'd like to bring some of my hard-obtained knowledge to your attention, something you were talking about in the show about how two people in the same room get the same recommended videos on YouTube is because of a small and aging algo known as LBS, or location-based services, which picks up your IP address and recommends videos on basis of your general election. In the case of cell phones, I used to work for an SMS provider in the UAE by the name of Value First, an overly Indian company with me as its first non-Indian employee who got fired when I cheered too much about the cricket match between India and Pakistan, which Pakistan won, and I got fired for being a Paki. Okay, too much information, I'm sure. We used to sell our clients
personal grudge, personal gripe. It's good.
You imagine you're working at you're Pakistani working in an Indian company. The Pakis are winning. You're like, yeah, of course. You're out.
You're gonna get fired.
Yeah, you're
Shut
out.
up.
You're out. We used to sell our clients LBS SMSs, wherein our clients could send clients SMSs based on the basis of their location, which we used to pick up through cell phone triangulation. So when you enter the Mall of Dubai, you would receive an SMS about the food court special deals and any sales, etc. Coming into the conversation about the algo picking up ads on basis of your conversations, I agree with John. The voice is too muffled to send any information. However, the aid words are not picked up during your breakfast table conversations. It's picked up during your telephone calls. Most phones will record every call as a default setting. This is specifically Android 5.01.1 devices. May be true. I don't know. But it appears that these chips that are in these phones really do give away a lot of information to the cell phone company. We have a couple more examples of what I think is pure location-based targeting. This is Steve from Massachusetts. On the last show, you were talking about ads. My wife received ads on her laptop about a new car I was researching, including the exact car and dealership. I've never used her laptop. I think the ads are shared on all devices on the same network. I've seen ads on mine for things she's interested in. Looks like I need to use a VPN. Then we have this is also an interesting one from Anonymous. I have a scenario that backs up your hypothesis on location-based sharing of information. I'm a software engineer with many years of experience. My wife and daughter were looking at stethoscopes as she needs one for her nursing school. They were using my wife's laptop, and she was using her own account that is totally separate from my account. The next day, I log on my computer with my own account and notice an ad for a stethoscope. That's pretty obscure right there. This is something I'm certain I've never searched for, and I found it more than a little unsettling. My wife and I spoke about this, and we're now divorced. Oh, no. And we thought it, too. Must have something to do with...
Is this on the same machine, though?
No, it's a different machine at work.
Okay.
My wife and I spoke about this, and we, too, thought it must be doing something based on searches. Oh, in the same house. I'm sorry. Not at work. Just as you spoke of on the last show. Also, one day at work, I logged onto my personal email. Shortly after that, I got ads for stethoscopes at work. Again, very unsettling, I can imagine.
Do we know if it's a different machine? It's still not clear to me.
Okay, I don't know from the email.
Because if it's the same machine, a cookie could do that.
Oh, of course, if it's the same machine. Yeah. Brett in Cincinnati, pretty clean example of one way I know we're being tracked. We recently sold our house. In preparation/staging it, we wanted to use an air mattress on a spare bed frame to show how a bedroom would look fully configured. My wife accidentally leaned on the mattress and popped it on a sharp corner of the metal bed frame. Notice how this good husband says she accidentally popped it. It wasn't her fault. It was probably my fault. I shouldn't have suggested in the first place. Since we had a showing later in the day, she went straight to Cabela's and bought a new air mattress on a credit card. The next day, Amazon was showing me ads for the exact brand of mattress my wife bought the day before at a bricks-and-mortar retail establishment. We did no online shopping for this product. We had no intention of buying it, never talked about buying it, and did no online research. The only way Amazon could get this data would be either from the retailer or the credit card company. In this case, Discover Card. In either case, they also they had to give Amazon the card number to correlate it to me. Yeah, well, Amazon buys that data. So that makes a lot of sense. But that did bring me to final emails here. Ron says, Adam, I noticed that the ad is always for the exact thing I bought. And this is one of my gripes. Why are you showing me the ad that I just bought the product for? He says, I think this might be to affect a bogus statistic. Apparently, in PPC advertising, pay-per-click conversion tracking, items purchased within 30 days of an ad run count as a conversion. And he says maybe...
He's thinking it's done on a reverse basis.
Well, I looked it up, and payment on... And this is a lot of Google's core business is the pay-per-click stuff, which is why they like doing click fraud as much as possible. Let's see. It's very murky. There's a lot of information about tracking and analytics of conversion, but when it gets to actual conversions and the window, they call it the conversion window, it can vary from 30 days to 90 days. Here, clicked conversions. Where is it? Clicked conversions are conversions that happen once an ad has been clicked and the user completes the desired action. There can be multiple conversions from one user if multiple items were purchased. Each platform tracks conversions in a different method. Now, it's possible that maybe it seems unlikely. Oh, here, the conversion window is the time from when a user clicks on an ad to when they actually convert. Each platform uses a different window, which can impact the number of conversions reported. For example, AdWords cookies expire 90 days after a customer's click, while Analytics uses a cookie that lasts for up to 6 months. AdWords conversions can have a window between 7 to 90 days. That means if a customer completed a conversion after 91 days, the conversion wouldn't be recorded, and so you wouldn't have to pay for it. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people who know exactly how this stuff works who are listening to the show, but I'd like to know if there's any thinking that perhaps some of these companies are actually doing this just to ramp up their income. It seems unlikely. It seems like once you've had the conversion, an incredible waste of resources. So either they know the conversion was there or they don't know the conversion was there.
No, I think you're not looking at it from the perspective of someone who might be larcenous. You just bought item Gizmo, and then you get the ad for the Gizmo, and then they say, look, he bought the Gizmo, and he was served an ad, and he bought the Gizmo.
Yeah. And then why do they serve the ad again?
Taking credit for as if the Gizmo was bought because of the ad, when the ad came after he already bought it.
Right.
Yeah, then they credit and say, look, advertiser, the advertisement worked because he bought your Gizmo, and we have proof of that.
It's like spiking the ball.
You down with OTG? You down with OTG? You down with OTG? Adam's OTG. You down with OTG?
Show my support by donating to No Agenda. Imagine all the people who could do that. Oh yeah, that'd be fab. Yeah, oh No Agenda in the morning.
And of course, we do have some people to thank. And I have a couple of messages I'll read after the thank you list, which is some notes I got from people that need help in one way or another. Peter J. Boyle starts off the list at $150. No particular information here. Andres Fortuna, $133.33.
He's a $4 a week producer since 2015. All right.
Yeah. Thank you for you provide for brain sanity. I'll lay some travel karma. I'll put that at the end for you. Andrew Showman, I'm guessing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh,
listening for the show.
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh, he needs de-douching. Yes, right away.
You've been de-douched.
And he's also another Eagle Scout listener. I wonder if we have hundreds of Eagle Scout
Who
listeners.
sent me an email?
I just find it peculiar that we have so many Eagle Scouts.
You know who was also an Eagle Scout?
No.
Sir Rod Adams.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. It's Eagles. Like, we just attract Eagle Scouts.
Yeah.
It must be the cologne.
James Williamson in Chillicothe, Illinois, 12323. He has a thing here I want to read part of. He wants to get a hold of someone. He doesn't want to read on the air. He does a thing in Chicagoland called NobCon. Every September, as close to 9/11 as possible. We have a
That's
weekend
Saturdays
of music
here in
technology.
Austin. NobCon.
NobCon. It's a synthesizer convention.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So look up NobCon with a K.
Yeah, of course with a K.
Sir Dave Barron of Kansas City in Gladstone, Missouri, 10101. Eric, $100. Carlos Pessina, $100. He needs a de-douching, I believe.
We got it.
You've been de-douched.
Eric Elaine, future No Agenda Night, $100 from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. There's so many people around there. It's unbelievable to me. Sir Timothy Brashears in Cookeville, Tennessee, $100. Sir Latte, Knight of the Bramellos, 8008. Boob. Ryan Quick, 7733. Sir James Briscoe, 7557.
Nice palindrome.
Harris Frankel, 75. Brandon Fenton, Colorado Springs, Colorado, 75. Sir Rick in Arlington, Washington, 6996. Donald Napier, 6660. Sir
Slabartefast, keeper of the crinkly bits. No, Slartibartfast. Slartibartfast. I practiced this.
Okay, Slartibartfest in Hope, Rhode Island, 6006 Small Boob. Jake Kenyon, 5757. Sir Peep Slayer, 5555. Taylor Martin. Oh, yeah. Did we have his dad, Jeff, on the birthday list?
We have, let me see, Jake and Dean.
What about Jeff?
Yeah, for his dad. No, not, yes, his dad, Jeff. We got him. We're good.
Oh. Taylor Martin, 5510, double nickels on the dime. Also, Dean Roker, double nickels on the dime. Ron Link in Holbrook, New York, double nickels on the dime. For some reason, we got a bunch today. Sir Phenom in Appleton, Wisconsin, 5347. We got some karma for you at the end. Martin Andrazek in Yukon, Oklahoma, 5150. Eric Schultz, 5150. Michael Werle, W-E-R-L-E, I guess, is Worley maybe, 51. Sir Chris James, $50.05 in Sturgis, Michigan.
He says
money was tight, but your last show was too damn good not to donate.
Thank you.
Andrew Benz in Imperial, Missouri, $50.05. Sir Alexander, helper of man from afar.
What does he say here? I've donated $7.73 every month until I doubled it 2 months ago. Thank you. Yet I still feel guilty enough to pay a little more. And meanwhile, all the douchebags continue to not feel guilty at all. I'm tired of paying their share, but I love the show so much, and I'm so grateful being pulled out of Dimension B that I know it's always worth the extra cash. ITM to you, sir.
$50.02 from him in out of Houston. And the following people are $50 donors, name and location if possible. Caleb Crossman in Salem, Oregon. Kyle Shaper in New Albany, Ohio. Scott Lavender in Montgomery, Texas. Daniel Sens in in parts unknown, $50. George Wouchette in Universal City, Texas. Thomas Dillon in Laverne, California. Andrew Gusick in Greensboro, North Carolina. And last but not least, Stephen Kirkpatrick in Langley, Washington.
We want to thank these people and everybody who came in under $50, typically for reasons of anonymity or on one of the many subscription programs we have. You talked about that in the newsletter, Dvorak.org/NA. And this is our value for value model. I mentioned earlier how big pharma, advertisers are God. And I think you had a good line in the newsletter saying, people who don't donate, which is probably 98% of the audience, maybe more, they'll say, well, if you want to make money on your little podcast, then why don't you just get some advertising? Well, here's the reason why we don't do that. It's because the advertiser is God, and you will adhere to the God of the United States. Even though we're global, I think this God thing goes for a couple other countries as well. Certainly when it comes to reporting on current events and news. You don't see any of the real problems being discussed about kids killing kids in school because we can't talk about pharmaceuticals because of the advertisers. So that's why our show is the way it is.
Yeah, we live and die by the double-edged sword
of Occam's razor. Exactly.
I do have a couple.
Let me finish it off. We got to do birthdays. We've been doing it for 10 years. I just wanted
to read. These are part of the donation thing. I just wanted to get out of the way.
Go ahead.
We did the one. This comes from Dame Nadia. And she says, I'm having trouble finding the man who asked for biotech jobs karma, which I think we did a couple of weeks ago or maybe a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's looking for his name because her last lab, she's a biotech person, moved to New York and she was looking for some other place to work. And she's like really talented, I guess, but I assume because she's very sharp.
Yeah.
So if anybody out there we did that, I was going to do a lot of research, goes out through spreadsheet after spreadsheet, but I said, hey, maybe the gal come forward and they can talk. They can talk to each other.
Okay. So this is a matchmaking service.
Exactly.
Okay. Any more?
No, that was it. The other one kind of came about by accident.
Well, thank you all very much. And remember, our show has 2 episodes a week. You can get in for an executive producership or associate executive producership for Thursday show. Go to
Dvorak.org/NA.
Jobs, 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 and jobs. Let's vote for jobs.
You've got karma.
It's your birthday.
And 2 on the list for today. Dean Calvin, November 8, Yankee Alpha says happy birthday to his oldest son, Seth. November 8, Romeo Mike Foxtrot. Happy birthday from Kilo 5 Alpha Charlie. And Jay Kenyon says happy birthday to his dad, Jeff. He turned 57 yesterday. Happy birthday from everybody here at the best podcast in the universe.
It's your birthday, yeah.
Boom. Count 1. Did you see the creepy Google video?
Give me a couple of little insight. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't.
It's about a 10-minute video.
Oh, no, I haven't seen it.
Okay. So this video shows up. It's a couple of years old. It's about 9 minutes. And it's Google giving us the kind of a background of epigenetics and, some Darwinism.
But what's epigenetics?
I have no idea.
Well, let's look it up.
I'm like, epigenetics. John will know what that means. I don't have to say. He'll say, yes, epigenetics. Of course, we know. Well, then let's stop the story in its tracks and
consult the book of knowledge.
Epigenetics, a study in changes in organisms caused by modifications of gene expression rather than alteration of the genetic code itself.
Yes. So,
how am I supposed? Nobody knows that. But okay.
Right. Well, it's the new. It's the new.
The new happening thing. Okay, well, keep it on the list.
This video is very slow and very stylized and very slow music. And what it shows is how Google wants to control the people. And it also,
it's done by Google?
Yes, and this was published.
It was a Google production?
Yes, and Google has answered, and I'm going to play a couple clips from it. Google has answered. They said, oh, no. A couple of years back, we had these special meetings. We get, executives together and we talk about, good and bad things. Like, this is one way that we of course, it was just a training exercise just to see this is what we'd never do this, of course. Now, it's just future dreaming. It's what we do here at Google. But we don't actually do that. That was their response. Because there's no way that if they took down one single copy of this video, people would go apeshit. I'm going to play the relevant bits for you. This is really a benefit of listening to the No Agenda show, so you don't have to sit through this whole thing because it's pretty tedious to listen to this entire video and to watch it. Here we go, setting it up. Just the pertinent bits from, it's called The Selfish Ledger. I'll just explain that a little bit. The idea is that just like DNA, we are containers of this epigenetic information, which is data. And this data, things we learn, such as don't touch a hot stove, I don't know, it could be, or how we respond in certain circumstances or where we want to live. The concept of the epigenetics is that is passed down through generations, and eventually you'll have generations of kids who understand the stove, wouldn't even go close to it, even though they've never been burned, or would always want to live in a cave, or whatever it is. Here's the intro.
So hold on. So this is the way they're presenting it as a form of genetic memory?
Correct.
May be considered a Lamarckian epigenome, a constantly evolving representation of who we are.
Okay, so what they're saying is when you collect all the data, the trail of data you're leaving behind, we can figure out exactly what that means. And when we have this ledger, we can start modifying your behavior with suggestions.
Initially, the notion of a goal...
Hold on a second. Shouldn't this be in the OTG segment?
Well, the whole show is an OTG segment at this point.
Okay, I'm just saying it just seemed like it would be nice in that package because this seems that this would be a complaint of yours.
Yes, that's why I have a multi-clip compilage package.
You may continue. I'm sorry for interrupting.
That's okay.
Initially, the notion of a goal-oriented ledger may be user-driven. As an organization, Google would be responsible for offering suitable targets for a user's ledger. Whilst the notion of a global good is problematic, topics would likely focus on health or environmental impact to reflect Google's values as an organization. Once the user selects a volition for their ledger, every interaction may be compared to a series of parallel options. If one of these options allows the ledger to move closer to its goal, it will be offered up to the user. Over time, by selecting these options, the user's behavior may be modified and the ledger moves closer to its target. As this line of thinking accelerates and the notion of a goal-driven ledger becomes more palatable, suggestions may be converted not by the user, but by the ledger itself. In this case, the ledger is missing a key data source, which it requires in order to better understand this user. In order to plug the gap in its knowledge, the ledger begins searching for a device which delivers the required data when used. From this list, the ledger begins sorting the options most likely to appeal to the user in question.
Okay, so you understand what they're saying? It's pretty much what they're doing now.
Yeah, it's pretty much what they're doing now. So Bing it. Just Bing it.
And now they'll get into how important the data is. Like DNA, it's passed on through the generations.
By thinking of user data as multi-generational, it becomes possible for emerging users to benefit from the preceding generation's behaviors and decisions. As new users enter an ecosystem, they begin to create their own trail of data. By comparing this emergent ledger with the mass of historical user data, it becomes possible to make increasingly accurate predictions about decisions and future behaviors. As cycles of collection and comparison extend, it may be possible to develop a species-level understanding of complex issues such as depression, health, and poverty. Our ability to interpret user data, combined with the exponential growth in sensor-enabled objects, will result in an increasingly detailed account of who we are as people.
Sensor-enabled objects.
As these streams of information are brought together, the effect is multiplied. New patterns become apparent and new predictions become possible.
I love that they denounce this. No, we'd never do that. It's just...
Why would they denounce it? It sounds exactly like what they're doing and what they should be doing if they're trying to do what they're trying to do, which is take over the world with a bunch of global warming nonsense.
Here's the wrap-up.
We are at the very beginning of our journey of understanding in the field of user data. By applying our knowledge of epigenetics, inheritance, and memetics to this field, we may be able to make mental leaps in our understanding, which could offer benefits to this generation, to future generations, and the species as a whole.
And to Google, of course. So now you didn't...
The creepy music is what makes the thing, or like, it doubles up the creep.
Yeah, and it's pretty well produced. It looks like they actually went out and shot, new man on the street crowd footage, people walking around with phones, data coming in. It's all very consistent.
A lot of TV people working there.
Consistent footage. Oh, for sure. I just love that they just denounce it.
Well, they're liars.
Yeah. Well, they are. And also, I've changed the word AI. Instead of artificial intelligence, I'm calling it artificial interpretation. I was playing with that Mycroft throughout the weekend, trying to get it to work properly. The open source talking tube, which is pretty good, except it doesn't have an array, and all of it is just interpretation. I think we should continue to use that term.
I'm not going to use it. Doesn't make any sense to me.
It's artificial interpretation. It's exactly what it is. It's interpreting the input.
As far as I'm concerned, I would use the term bullshit rather than I'd use either one of those two terms.
Skip logic, bullshit.
Bullshit.
I did have a thought, though, for any dudes named Ben out there who want to make some real artificial interpretation bullshit. Why not have a bot that connects to my IMAP server, which also tells me when an email is marked read or unread or etc., and train it that way? It seems like the thing that you could really change the world, if you could fix email. It really, I would be so happy. I think it's possible.
You don't think people are working on this constantly?
No. Well, sure, that we have spam, Bayesian spam logic, which is kind of the core of artificial intelligence, or as you call it, bullshit. And I agree. I'm agreeing with you on that. But, it seems like if you fix that, if you really fix what each individual person deems as important, that would be a revolution. So, no, I don't think they're working on it. Or maybe they are.
Why don't we start an email company? There's our exit strategy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's like I was a billionaire and got into aviation. Now I'm a millionaire. Yeah, that's what we need, John.
You're broke.
We need to get we need to get into email companies. What could possibly go wrong? No, I don't think so. Anyway, I think it's a damning evidence that Google is out to change our behavior en masse, and they're very capable of doing it today.
Yeah, they're probably doing it as we speak.
Yes.
And they're all, hillbots. So what are you going to do? So we have our local story. We got Libby Schaaf versus Trump. If you want to play get back to the news.
Who is Libby Schaaf?
Libby Schaaf is the mayor of Oakland.
Oh, yes.
Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf has answered back to President Trump's comments suggesting that the Department of Justice should investigate her for possible obstruction of justice. This stems from her alerting the community in February about upcoming ICE raids. NBC Bay Area's Christy Smith spoke with Schaaf today about her op-ed in the Washington Post.
Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf is meeting with neighbors today outside a barber shop to hear their concerns, part of her Mobile Mayor program.
Lots of times I get thanked for warning my community about an impending ICE raid, but sometimes people just want to talk about the pothole on their street.
She's talking about that warning in February that immediately drew anger from President Trump. She said she wanted people to be prepared, not panicked, and know their rights. This week, President Trump directed this suggestion at Attorney General Jeff Sessions.
I mean, you talk about obstruction of justice. I would recommend that you look into obstruction of justice for the mayor of Oakland, California, Jeff.
I'm surprised that the president continues to obsess with his vindictiveness about trying to hold me up on charges.
Schaaf is responding. She explains her position in a Washington Post op-ed. In it, she says she's not obstructing justice, she's seeking it. She says the paper reached out to her.
That's what the kicker was.
Yes.
The Washington Post reached out to her.
Yeah.
So in other words, they had pre-written some anti-Trump screed.
Mm-hmm.
They call her up and say, "Hey, you're getting slammed by the president. We want you to write an op-ed for us. We have some ideas."
Yeah, like this.
You want it like this. You want to look it over, maybe, and maybe give us put your twist on it, and we'll run it, and you get to be in the newspaper. That's like aggressive.
That's what they do. It's their right. It's the free press. Right to a free press.
Free press.
Hey, I told you this story, and you were seeing no evidence of it, which is, it's California, a whole different country. Maryland seafood industry loses 40% of workforce in visa lottery. Nearly half of the Eastern Shore's crab houses have no crab. Told you.
Huh.
Yeah, so what happened, now I understand the story a little better, is the visa lottery for the H-2B visas used to be first come, first serve, and the company who needs to hire...
What's H-2B compared to H-1B?
Okay. An H-2B is a temporary worker for seasonal. This is what Trump uses at Mar-a-Lago and his other places. You bring in seasonal people from mainly Mexico, and they have a visa, and then they're supposed to go back. And
H-2B, temporary non-ag workers.
Right. This is not ag. This is seafood. And so that used to be you could, get in early. Okay, I need 150 of these visas. Now that changed. I don't know why, or I'm not sure exactly what happened, but apparently it's now being done on a lottery basis. So you're allocated whatever you can get as an employer.
Ah.
Yeah, and I don't know why that change was made, but now there seems to be a huge shortage of workers, particularly in the crabbing business.
They can't get any Americans out of homeless or anybody to do this job?
This is my question. Why don't we see if anyone else wants to do this? What is wrong with us? Us.
I don't know.
I mean, come on, kids.
But no, it's just.
But no crab cakes.
Well, especially back east, that's where crab cakes are the best.
I got no crab cakes, baby. Crab cakes. Yes, Maryland for sure. They're fantastic.
Yeah, and soft-shelled crab would be the other loss.
Oh, I love soft-shell crab. There was a woman on Tucker Carlson show, and I think I've cut him out, so it doesn't count as a Tucker clip. She's from Live Action. She's the president, Lila Rose. And it was about Planned Parenthood and Title X and, of course, the Republicans, Dimension A, all just incensed about Planned Parenthood, this money they're getting for abortions. The story, though, isn't really about the abortions. And this was an eye-opener to me. I'm probably going to play this clip and you go like, hey, you didn't know that? But I certainly never thought about it this way because Planned Parenthood.
You didn't know this?
Yeah, I know. I
don't even know what you're going to play. I just get it out of the way.
Just get it out of the way. Just so they get half $500 million annually for Medicare, from Medicare. But they really have two organizations. The people asking for money is a separate 501c4, which is a lobbying organization. But there's hundreds of millions, and they probably bring in $800 or $900 billion a year for their operation. But they really only need a few $100 million to perform what they're performing, and it doesn't matter what they do. Listen to this.
It's ridiculous. There are literally thousands of federally qualified health centers that are far more qualified to provide holistic care that don't commit abortions that could receive both the Medicaid reimbursement money and Title X money, and there are other providers that can receive that money. The DNC is in the pocket of Planned Parenthood, and once they get their $500 million of money a year from taxpayers because of the Democrats, unfortunately right now, and the Republicans in some ways enabling it by not fighting it enough, then they turn around and fund the Democrats in their election. So it's a real pass-through of money.
See, this is what I hadn't figured out. The reason why they want Planned Parenthood around is not because they don't want to kill unborn children. I don't think they care, really. The idea is you get all this money through legislation, flows into Planned Parenthood. They use several $100 million of it, and the rest they use to flow into the campaigns of the next round of douchebags who are going to, again, put in laws that more money comes in and flows into the DNC. Yes!
It's a huge scam.
And I'm sure the Republic, maybe that's what the NRA does. I don't know. It's very possible. Although I don't think the NRA gets government money.
They don't have that kind of money. They don't get government money.
Right. But that's like, oh. And I heard you in my head going, but you don't know this?
Scam.
It's a scam. That just all of a sudden hit me. He's like, oh, now I understand what the problem is. We're following dead babies instead of following the money. Stupid. We need to forget the dead babies. Look at the money.
Getting in the way.
It's just getting in the way. Truly.
Talking about dead babies, we have this little thing going on. I want to get this clip out of the way.
Best transition ever. Speaking of dead babies.
Speaking of dead babies, called Bad Segue.
Yeah.
So Vinod Khosla, who we know from Kleiner Perkins, he used to be one of the hot shots at Kleiner Perkins, and it became a big kind of a feud between him and John Doerr. And Khosla was trying to get Doerr kicked out, and Doerr was trying to get him kicked out, and Doerr won and became chairman of Kleiner Perkins. Everybody else is kind of retired. And Khosla started his own operation. And somewhere along the line, he bought some beachfront property.
Yeah.
And there's one road and the surfers love to surf that area just in front of his property, which he claims is his, and there shouldn't be anybody on this beach. And it's been a big scandal, and it has to do with the road that he's blocked. It's his road, and he's blocked it so he can't drive out to this beach and surf. And it's just a douchebag city, the whole thing. But I clipped this to show you what happens when, and he sounds so innocent in this whole thing. It's a very interesting story.
1, 2, 3. He's a hero to would-be founders and entrepreneurs, posing for photos after his keynote speech at a startup competition in San Francisco. But 30 miles south, folks have a bit of a different opinion of Vinod Khosla.
He put up the gate and started arresting surfers.
The billionaire founder of Sun Micro was at the center of the controversy over public access to Martins Beach. The beach is public. The only road to get there is not. And Khosla wants to keep it that way.
Well, it's strictly a matter of principle.
It's the first time we've heard from Khosla himself on the issue, which he says is not about beach access, but private property. He pointed us to this blog he wrote defending his position and criticizing what he called unfair media coverage.
Do you know open beach access has never existed on that property, ever?
He explains the former owners only allowed access to people who paid for parking. It was a business. But when Khosla bought it, he says the state said he couldn't make basic business decisions, things like changing hours of operation or the $10 fee.
And do you know the courts have ruled there's no public access?
But in a separate suit, the Surfrider Foundation argues even if it is private property, if he wants to close the gate or charge more for parking, it's, quote, development, and Khosla should have to get a permit.
Yeah, just like everybody else.
I mean,
even though it's his own private property?
Well, even though it's your own private car, you got to get a driver's license.
Robert Coughlin of the Surfrider Foundation says the issue is access.
The surfers just want access to the ocean.
But Koshla argues the state could have bought the property itself, instead letting him buy it than restricting his rights.
I think he knew everything that he was getting into.
Koshla is now taking his case to the Supreme Court, and if he wins, it could ultimately affect the entire California coast. If you win, this could set a precedent for coastal access statewide. Does that bother you?
Absolutely bothers me. But we need a coastal commission that works with property owners to follow the law.
Still, he says he doesn't want to restrict access, but it's a matter of principle.
You know, sometimes I'd rather do the harder right thing than the easier wrong thing.
What a douche. Love the self-righteousness.
Oh, totally. Oh, my God. Yeah, well, as you said, we only need one leader to come out with some pitchforks.
Oh, yeah. We need a Mao Zedong of the homeless. And the surfers, for that matter.
Oh, no. The surfers are they're pacifists. They're laid back, bro. Laid back.
Man. Yeah, it's okay, man. I can walk.
All right, you got anything else?
I got just the indie bookstore story. I'll put that. It's a very unusual situation.
Well, let's do it. I'm interested in the indie bookstore.
Yeah, let's play that.
That'll be our last story for the day.
Across the country, the last Saturday in April is Independent Bookstore Day. There are about 1,700 of them in the U.S. A decade ago, they appeared to be on the verge of extinction. But in recent years, hundreds have opened. Tony DeCopel has more on America's indie bookstore boom.
I am a mom, and I frequently lie to my children.
On a Thursday night in LaGrange, Illinois, comedy fans were all but rolling in the aisles, which is good news if you're selling what's in those aisles. That's right. This is a bookstore.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Help me draw the connection between books and comedy shows.
Because we host a lot of different events. It's good for business, but it's also good for our community.
Becky Anderson is a co-owner of Anderson Books, which began as a pharmacy and has been in her family for 5 generations. It's now a small, successful chain in the Chicago area, and it turns out that stores like this are helping Harvard Business School professor Ryan Raffaelli solve an economic mystery.
I often say these are stories of hope.
He set out to explain why the number of independent bookstores has been growing, up every year since 2009, despite cheaper, more convenient ways to buy books online, in national chain stores, and with e-readers. What Raffaelli found is that successful bookstores,
You guys are membership site? Yes.
like Anderson's, win with a local appeal, a curated selection, and as many as 500 events a year.
They've also been sensitive and had the ability to adapt and reactivate some of the values that were there that may have been muted in a race towards trying to have the cheapest and largest inventory.
But books, real physical books, are still the main attraction.
So many people spend so much time on devices that when it comes to reading for pleasure, they don't want to read from a device.
The best thing about a book is you can't get email on it.
Yeah, you can't put it up to your ear. It's so good.
Tony DeCopel, CBS News, New York.
And if you didn't have time to support independent bookstores today, there's always tomorrow.
Hey, there's always tomorrow, people. Don't worry about it. Screw the books. This is encouraging. Thank you for that uplifting report at the end of our...
I finally get doing something. I'm getting a clue from the network news. They always put a feel-good story at the end.
Yes. Yeah. And we got some good mixes. Sir Chris Wilson, Tom Starkweather, and the scrumptious George Carlin. Yeah, it's encouraging. Yep, you can't stop the humans. The humans, they want the real thing. Yeah, they're not falling.
That's true.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't want the bull crap.
Go get your Nokia E71. Someone out there, let's clone them and sell them. Come on, people, help me out. It's open source. Let's do it. And we return on Thursday. I may be in New York. Details to follow. Yes, details to follow. Remember us at Dvorak.org/NA. Until then, coming to you from downtown Austin, Texas, capital of the Drone Star State, FEMA Region 6 on the governmental maps in the 5x9 Cludio in the common law condo in the morning, everybody. My name's Adam Curry.
And from northern Silicon Valley, I'm John C. Dvorak.
We return on Thursday right here on No Agenda. Until then, adios, mofos. I need a cab.
Hey!
It's no longer something confined to R&D labs and garage-based startups.
I've heard that some people think robots are mean, Terminator-like machines.
And then we have people like, well, Elon Musk, who said
we're very close to the cutting edge in AI.
We should advise you, however, that our preliminary findings indicate that your onboard 9000 computer is in error.
Identify malfunction immediately.
On to Bishop 4.
Once there is superintelligence, the fate of humanity may depend on what the superintelligence does.
That's amazing coding.
I was listening to a podcast hosted by
Adam Curry
and John C. Dvorak.
Artificial intelligence will give us new jobs.
It's going to be all right again.
Something happening over here. Whoa.
It's likely rather to swoosh right by.
Hello, computer.
Like if then, go to.
Yeah, if then, if.
I hope the two of you are not concerned about this.
And if you don't want your wife to know what you've been searching, treat your algo well, 'cause sure as hell when you do buy that thing from Amazon, it goes on and constantly tries. It keeps asking you to buy with pop-ups on the fly, despite the filters you apply. That's the algo.
Shut me up, rough, tough, and hard to bluff. You can't dumb me down. I got no need for coke and speed. You can't shut me up. You got no urge to binge and purge. You can't dumb me down. I interface with my database. My database is in cyberspace. I wear power ties, I tell power lies, I take power naps, I run victory laps. I read junk mail, I eat junk food, I buy junk bonds, I watch trash sports. I'm tireless and I'm wireless. I'm an alpha male on beta blockers. Interactive, I'm hyperactive. From time to time, I'm radioactive. Take it slow, I go with the flow. I ride with the tide, I get line in my stride. I don't snooze, so I don't lose. I keep the pedal to the metal and the rubber on the road. I've been pre-washed, pre-cooked, preheated, pre-screened, pre-approved, pre-packaged, dated, freeze-dried. Pre-washed, pre-cooked, preheated, pre-screened, pre-approved, pre-packaged, dated, freeze-dried. And I'm hanging in, there ain't no doubt, and I'm hanging tough. Over and out, over and out, over and out.
best podcast in the universe.
Adios, mofo.
Dvorak.org/NA